September 25th business meeting of the Board of Education to order. Could I have a roll call by the secretary, please?
What?
Here.
Guard.
Here.
Larson.
Here.
Wilson.
Here.
Charles.
Here.
Sanchez.
Here.
Wong.
Present.
Okay, all the members are here. Could I have an approval of the agenda, please?
I'd like to make a motion for the approval of the agenda with the removal of policy 185.5.
Okay, because 185.5 was discussed in the previous meeting.
Correct.
Okay, is there a second, please?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, the agenda is approved, and now I would like to introduce, we're doing something a little different tonight. We have two of our students from Merrill School that are going to come and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And if you'd like to come up here, we have Kimora Black, who's a second grader in Miss Davidson's class, and her brother, he says his name is, her brother is in 5K, he's happy to tell me, and his name, he says, is Melvin Black Jr. So if we could have you kids turn around and face the flag, and we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance together with you leading us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Now we have announcements. Who's reading announcements? Jeff, thank you.
The Beloit Memorial High School Jazz Orchestra is performing and holding a benefit concert on Sunday, September 30th from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Butterfly Club. Mike Sala has been a big supporter of Beloit High School and the Beloit community. All proceeds raised will go toward their upcoming Kids Against Hunger event, which is happening on November 2nd. On Monday, October 1st, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., there's a fundraiser for one of our students who is very ill and is currently at Children's Memorial Hospital in Milwaukee. This event, a tortoise sale, is being run through LULAC. LULAC means League of United Latino American Citizens. Thank you, Mr. Wilson, for that. At St. Jude Catholic Church. And we will have the information on our website tomorrow if you have interested in helping the family out. The high school is hosting its homecoming events on Friday, October 5th. There's an all-school assembly and pep rally at noon, followed by the parade at 1:30 p.m. through downtown. And, of course, the football game kicks off at 7 p.m. against Verona. The athletic department is hosting a Meet the Coach night on Wednesday, October 10th, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Rotary Center located at 1160 Riverside Drive. All the head coaches for the winter athletics seasons will be in attendance. Mr. Joel Beard will have a presentation on the future of athletics and share the mission and goals of the athletic department. Aldridge Intermediate is hosting a multicultural night on Thursday, October 11th from 5 to 7 p.m. And they're holding their their fall choir concert on Thursday, October 18th at 6:30 p.m. There is no school for students on Friday, October 12th, as this is a professional development day district-wide. Fruzen Intermediate is hosting its fall choir concert on Tuesday, October 30th at 7 p.m. Thank you. This concludes this evening's announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Klett. And now we have recognitions.
Good evening, Madam President and members of the Board of Education. Also, good evening to community members watching online or on our cable channel. I'm Brian Vissers, the Public Information Officer and Community Relations Coordinator with the School District of Beloit. Tonight, it's my pleasure to announce our monthly board recognitions. We've had the honor to receive numerous school supplies from our companies who are community partners in the greater Beloit area. These organizations that we would like to recognize tonight for their generous donations are First Congregational Church, If there's a member from First Congregational Church, we have a certificate for you. Carry Ingredients. I know that we have a member from Carry Ingredients. And we'd like to recognize you with this certificate. Also, we have representatives from Mid-States Concrete Industries, Rock Energy Corporation Cooperative, and State Collections, who we officially recognized last month, but we were unable to get them their certificates in person. So if you want to come forward, we can recognize you with that. So Mid-States Concrete Industries. Rock Energy Cooperative. And then State Collections. Thank you. And we've had a staff member at Memorial High School who was recognized by Yale University as a recipient of the 2018 Yale Educator Award. In order to receive this award, you have to be nominated by an incoming freshman to Yale, and our recipient was nominated by 2018 graduate Eleanor Conover Crockett. Mrs. Dawn Lemerond Pepping, an English teacher, is one of only 58 teachers and 28 school counselors from 42 states and 12 countries who were selected to receive this recognition. All right. And finally, last month, I introduced you to Sandra Justicia, which was one of the teachers from Spain. And it's our pleasure to have numerous other teachers. Mr. Tony Bosco is going to introduce them all to you this evening. Mr. Bosco?
Good evening, Board of Education. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight to recognize some of our teachers that are working in the bilingual Department of Bilingual Programs this year. First, teacher recognition is very important district-wide. We had fabulous teachers all over the school district Beloit. But one of the reasons that we're here this evening is to recognize teachers that have come from a little bit further away than some of our normal teachers. When I Googled exactly how far it is from Chicago to Madrid, about 4,300 miles or so. And I just wanted to kind of give a shout out to the 7 teachers that we have from Spain, 3 from the 17-18 school year, and then 4 more that came back this year, which is wonderful, and then 4 new teachers that have joined our team this year from Spain. When you talk about moving to take a job, you know, we've all probably done that at some point in our lives, but this is a little different. Not only is there that huge travel, you have to have a passport, but when you think about coming to a place that you maybe have never been before with systems that are incredibly different from what you're used to, you have to do things to gain employment in the United States that are unfamiliar. And throughout this entire process, all 7 of these people, both last year and this year, have done so with a smile and a can-do attitude. And it's just been a real joy to get to know them, not only as professional educators, but kind of as an extension of my own family a little bit. Another thing is a couple of our teachers, several of them, have brought children with them. They've brought spouses with them. And so we have 3 brand new Purple Knights this is their first month of school in the United States. 2 of them are playing soccer quite well, I might add. And it just adds a different level of that feeling of community, both for us as the receiving school district, but also for them when we talk about what makes this place special. So I just want to honor them individually, recognize them individually. So when I call your name, please come up. The first group I'm going to call are the 3 from the 17-18 school year who are here again this year. Estela Garcia. Come on up. Begonia Aragon Garay. Magdalena Martina Fariñas. Well, these are 3 teachers that came in 17-18 for their first year, and then they are here with us again for the second year. The Amity program through the Spanish consulate, our Spain exchange teachers, culture exchange program can be here for up to 5 years. You have to ask for an extension after the 3rd year. We're working really hard to be able to keep them here that entire time because I think that's good for our kids, it's good for our culture. So give a round of applause to our 3 teachers from 17-18. And then we have 4 teachers that came this year that have only been in the United States for about 8 weeks, maybe 7 weeks for some of them. So you can just imagine the learning curve that exists for all of these staff. Raquel Gonzalez Barriga. David Martorell Ferri is not here tonight, but he is a great addition. Sandra Justicia Leva. And Maria Teresa Maite Guido Moliner. The diversity that we have as a school district is something that is special. And the opportunity that we have to work with Amity and the Spanish consulate and the exchange program just adds to that flavor, and it's exciting, and we're so glad you're here. We're grateful that you've made the commitment to be a part of the school district and to share your culture and your teaching experience with us and our students. Thank you so much.
I just want to also thank you for joining us, welcome you to the School District of Beloit, and to our businesses that donated. Thank you for your generosity, Carry Ingredients, Mid-States Concrete, and I believe it was State Collections. Was there any others? Pardon? Rock Energy. Thank you so much for all your donations. And Ms. Pepping, you walked away so quickly. I thought you were going to give a speech. I know. Congratulations. It's an incredible honor, the award you received, and really it's wonderful for you and for our school district as well. I don't know if it's ever happened before for us, so congratulations on that. Excellent. Okay, we're now at the time when we invite members of the audience who wish to speak this evening on something that's not on the agenda. The Board of Education will generally not respond or act on items that are not on tonight's agenda. Appropriate items will be referred to administration or one of the board's committees. Persons wishing to speak on one of the posted agenda items may do so as items are called by the board president. While the board and district welcome public comments, we as a board also must ask that you exercise care in your comments that relate specifically to our school district employees or persons connected with the school system. In order to protect the rights of these individuals, and in the interest of complying with open meetings law on prior posting of items for consideration at this meeting, the board reserves the right to end comment on such topics. The use of specific names of district personnel may lead to legal liability on the part of a speaker. The board would also remind the public that the board has existing procedures in place to handle legitimate complaints against staff members and persons related to the system. Persons wishing to speak should complete the public comment card, hand it to the board secretary, and then proceed to the podium. You will then need to clearly state your name and address for the record before beginning your comments. Each person is asked to speak no more than 3 minutes unless you're using an interpreter. Are there any persons who wish to speak at this time? Okay, seeing none, we will proceed to the next item on the agenda, which is Superintendent Report to the Board. The first one is Beloit's Literacy for Life Initiative. Ms. Elliott.
Good evening, everyone. Ms. Elliott is up, and I'm going to bring her up in a moment. But we're going to set the tone because this is one of those days I'm not going to let go past. I would be remiss not to take advantage of the opportunity to just celebrate all the teaching and learning that is going on in our district. And tonight is one of those nights where you're going to hear a lot of information about all of the great things that are truly happening in our schools to improve outcomes for kids. So I'll be quick because I want you to actually hear the presentations from our principals and directors. So some of the things that we focus on throughout the year to improve student performance is to really take a hard look at our curriculum improvements. That includes looking at our standards, the materials, the resources, the systems, the programs, and the structures we have in place to improve outcomes for kids. We focus on instructional quality through our professional development, not only for our teachers, but for our leaders as well as our staff. And we target supports for students and provide enrichment opportunities. That includes things such as tutoring, enrichment, supports, and interventions for those students. And of course, the school district cannot do it alone. We are focused on increasing family engagement and community support through various partnerships. So how do we do it? We make sure that all of our goals are aligned. Not only the district school, but the professional goals are aligned to the district strategic plan in those same 4 areas. And this year, in the Department of Teacher and Learning Innovation, one of the things that we have shared since the very beginning of our PD this summer is that we will be focused on, as a school district, on high expectations, high accountability, and high support for staff. And so one of the things that our principals have been really focused on is making sure that, one, they set high expectations in the building, working with their staff to do so that those teachers can set high expectations for our kids. And really figure out, how do you assess the progress related to those expectations? And then how do you, more importantly, support staff and students with reaching those expectations? So I challenge the board tonight and the community to listen to the presentations tonight for those things, especially the 4 areas that have been identified here. And we look forward to having some dialogue at the end. So without further ado, I want to introduce one of our major initiatives this summer is the Beloit Literacy for Life, and Rochelle Elliott and others will come up and discuss.
Good evening. Again, I'm Rochelle Elliott. I'm the Director for Early Literacy for the School District of Beloit. And this is Bill Flanagan, don't stand back there, who's going to help me today with the Beloit Literacy for Life initiative that I'm really excited that the school district is a major contributor to the program or the initiative. And what we're looking at is creating a community partnership around early literacy. We know the first 2,000 days is essential in a child's life for their brain development, early literacy, early math, and speaking. And the school district cannot do this alone. We need the community involved with us and in every step of the way. And so what Beloit Literacy for Life is we really take a look at, we encourage organizations to look at their strengths and how can they bring early literacy into the things that they do every day. Who do they see? What connections do they have? And how can they pull early literacy into the things that they're doing all the time? We've had really great traction the last couple of weeks. The Beloit Health System is now doing Reach Out and Read. We have several churches who have changed some of their normal things that they do every day and pulling in literacy. And so it's really, really exciting time right now. Bill is a huge part of the Beloit Literacy for Life initiative. So I would like him to have a couple seconds, couple minutes.
Good evening, everyone. I've been a community member for 38 years, and when I came to Beloit in 1980, it was a community that was really in flux and in change. And during that time, I have seen so many visionaries step forward and turn our community into a beautiful place to live and to learn. The qualitative changes to our infrastructure are a sense of great pride. And during the course of the past year, as I retired from Beloit College, one aspect of life in Beloit that I felt really needed attention was to develop the human side of that equation and to equal the progress that we've made as a community. I I went to a presentation by Dr. Depesh Navsaria, a pediatrician from UW-Madison. And to be honest, I went into that session more of obligation than real interest. But during the time of him speaking to our community for about the third time, it hit me like a lightning bolt that the key to our growth, our future, and our children is with literacy. And so when I retired from Beloit, Rochelle and I had the opportunity to team up together with the State Line Community Foundation and focus our efforts and energy on developing the Beloit Literacy for Life initiative. To say it's been a dramatic and positive interchange among all the partners from the community, the hospital, the health system, the school district, the city of Beloit, so many Culvers, the churches, people working from their strength, from their interest to build the structure to embrace literacy in everything that we do. It has just been the most wonderful year, and we're just getting started. This is Literacy Month, September, and so you have noticed a number of activities with photos, opportunity, and all of that. But what begins this month, it is our hope that it is the beginning of early childhood literacy leading up to what Dr. Ramos is attempting to incorporate at the high school. Was like a dream come true when he came on board and was focusing on literacy at the high school, that we are going to zero in on trying to make sure that our kids have every opportunity to learn, to grow, develop, and to be as successful as they possibly can be because they're able to read and able to write. That's our dream. That's what we're going to try to do. We have benchmarks. I know that you have some materials in front of you, but I want to thank you for sharing Rochelle with us. She's been just an amazing partner in making this work. So thank you very much, and go Beloit.
So our next presentation will be done by the principal of Aldrich Intermediate School, Joe Vidoc. He's going to discuss his school improvement plan. So again, look for the common elements in what I shared earlier. You should also see within his plan.
Thank you for the opportunity to come up here and share a few things that are going on at Aldrich. And I think it's not going to be a smart move for me just to read through this because everybody can see it. So I'm going to try and throw some life into the ideas and connect the words so that you guys can make connections with those. If I was to ask, who are we at Aldrich, and who do we envision ourselves to be, I would say the primary answer, the best answer, the answer that we want to focus on is we want a place that has a culture that's tangible, that's palpable, that's concrete, that when you walk in the door, you can feel it, whether you're a parent, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a student, a board member, anybody in the community. When you walk in our building, you feel something that is good. You feel like the kids that are there want to be there. They're happy to be there. You feel like the teachers that are there are happy to be there and they love to be there and teach. You feel like this is a place that people are happy to call home. And so that's what we're after. So all the things on the SIP, if they create and develop that, then our scores will go up. That's my hope for how our scores are going to go up. And we have concrete action steps to get there. But in the end, I want a culture that feels good, that makes people want to be at this school, Aldrich. So how are we going to do that? Well, if I was to give you one more example of something that represented that for me, I was talking to one of my teachers a couple days ago, and she came up to me and she said, I actually asked her, so how was it in the classroom? Did you have a good time today? Did you get to teach? Was it a good time for you? And she said, my class almost made me cry. And usually that's a bad thing to hear, right? You hear that and you're like, all right, lay it on me. But she had a little smile on her face. And so she said, no, I got to teach everything exactly like I wanted to. The kids were all in. I said it the way I wanted to say it. They received it the way they were supposed to receive it. This is why I love to teach. And it was a beautiful day. It almost made me cry. That's what we're after in every class, bit by bit, moment by moment, second by second, more and more each day, to the point where that's the experience we get at Aldrich Intermediate School. And that happens, everything will change. It'll be transformative. All right? So how are we going to get there? Well, if you think about the framework for our kids, and you'll see this in the learning environment, I mean, really all of these things to me are all about learning environment. If that's not in place, you got nothing. And so with the students, the framework is our PBIS framework, Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports. What does that mean? It just means that, well, for example, my PBIS team met, I don't know, I'd say at least 3 full days, 3 8-hour days during the summer, combing through the discipline data, trying to find ways to create lessons to teach kids what it means to solve a conflict without yelling profanities or running across the classroom, but how to do it in a way that's effective, that fixes problems and is win-win for everybody. If they don't know how to do it, we got to teach them. And so finding those places in our data where we needed to create lessons and make them better for kids so that they understood how to treat each other and the expectations at the school, that was very huge. That's something that we really worked on. PBIS is also all about positive interactions. It's about staff and students interacting positively as much as possible, with handshakes, with smiles, with how you doing, trying to get those connections that are absolutely essential to create a learning environment where things can happen. So we're about that. We're creating those connections with those kids through positivity and all that we say and do as staff. There's just a really, I don't like the word robust, I guess, but I'm going to use it, a robust array of all sorts of rewards and recognitions for students who are doing the right thing, and we've got a lot of them. Our data shows that nearly 80% of our kids get 0 or 1 referrals. That's 80 out of 100. 800 out of 1,000 are doing the right thing all the time. And we love that, and we want to make sure that they understand we appreciate them, we recognize them, we love them, and so there are things in place there for us to do that. And there's also supports involved for students that need that extra support. And so we work hard to design those supports that can help students who are experiencing challenges and struggles find the most success that they can. So that's our PBIS framework. But then hold up next to that the idea of accountability. We teach the code of conduct. We tell the teachers and the kids throughout all that explanation of all the numbers and what they mean and all that stuff is, in the end, if a teacher cannot teach in the classroom and you're the reason, then I've got to deal with you. That's not going to occur. We'll fix that. We'll find a way to make that better one way or another. And so the code of conduct is something that we do teach them, and we enforce it. But as you know, instruction drives discipline as much as discipline can drive instruction. And so we've got, I think, a very strong piece in with our PBIS and our code of conduct. But on the other side, what are we doing with our teachers to make sure that their instruction is driving great discipline in the classroom and engagement, high engagement with our students? And when I think of the SIP, where we come in and it's what I call it is PLC-centric, professional learning communities, and that's really the hub, the nexus of everything that happens with our teachers to create the kind of teacher that can be engaging so that their instruction can drive great discipline in the classroom. So what do I mean by that? Now, if you look at our SIP, there's school improvement plan. We might have, I think we have 3% growth from kids that are in the basic to the proficient in our MAPS test in both math and reading. So if we can, as a minimum, have 3% more this year than we did last year of kids scoring proficient rather than basic or minimal, that's good growth for us if we can continue that over time. So that's the number piece of it. But how do you do that? How do you ensure that that happens when you have universal curriculum that's full of high expectations and learning expectations? You have to find a way to let the kids access that curriculum because they're all expected to. So the key for us in PLCs to make instruction drive discipline is to figure out a way to differentiate for our kids. That's the key word. It's differentiation. If I'm teaching a Springboard lesson in 8th grade and I've got someone in there who isn't quite at that level but is still in a Springboard class, how can I make sure that kid can access that curriculum? And it's through differentiation, which occurs through our PLCs. It occurs at a district level through our PD. But if the teachers don't know how to do that, if they don't have real concrete strategies to differentiate so those kids can access the curriculum, then we can't teach it to them. So that is the key in our PLCs. We're focusing on that every week. We're trying to make data relevant to our teachers. Because a lot of times, data are just numbers. They don't come alive. But we're trying to show them and model for teachers how they can really be relevant, how this data actually drives everything we do, no matter what it is. You just haven't back mapped it quite to see where that came from. And if we can do that, there's so many sources that you can use for data that will actually drive your instruction and give you insight and key to where you can help kids the most. So we're really working to create that system through our PLCs where teachers are truly collaborative. They're teachers teaching teachers, sharing strategies, both with behavior strategies and academic strategies, trying to come up with ways to differentiate, because again, that's a complex thing. When you have a curriculum, you can't change the curriculum. That's changing the curriculum. That's not universal anymore. You can't change the content. You have to change the processes, right? How they do something within the curriculum and the content. And people don't just magically wake up and know that. They have to be taught how to do it. They have to share ideas with each other. They have to try it out in the classroom, come back and talk about those experiences with each other. So that PLC really is the center point for us to help our instruction drive our discipline, which, with those two things together, create the learning environment that gives me the great hope that things are always on the upswing at Aldrich. So who are we and what do we want to be? We want to be a place where everybody who walks in that door is happy to be there. Thank you.
I want to make sure this isn't a long night. 1 or 2 questions for the Aldrich principal, because we have 4 other principals that will be going. So any questions specific for him?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. Your enthusiasm is infectious, so I'm sure that in the school, as you share that enthusiasm, and I do appreciate your explanation of where your focus is, but your enthusiasm is infectious, and I think that's going to be a big thing for the successes you are seeking, and we are seeking as a district.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And next we have Brandy Herford, the principal of Gaston Elementary School.
Hello, good evening. Brandy Herford, principal at Gaston Elementary School. You have some of our things in front of you, so I just wanted to focus on a few of our strengths and our action plan as well. So in math, we've noticed that we've had some good teaching and some things that we're moving kids in. We're above the district average in fraction and base 10. We also looked at our map data where we're seeing certain cohorts that are excelling and moving along over time and growing in proficiency. And those cohorts are listed there, whether it be grade level or race and nationality. In math, we would really like to focus on 3 key strategies. Our main goal, of course, is to work on MAP, because MAP is a true predictor of how well students will do on the forward exam. So that is one of our goals, to get a 3 to 5% increase. We plan on doing that by using 3 strategies. The first strategy would be using our PLCs and really honing in on our students and trying to use those district tier 2 interventions that have been approved and trained with all of our staff. So looking at those, seeing where they are, getting kids back in the SIT process if the things aren't working out. And a SIT is a student intervention team, so that we know how to move our kids forward or change the interventions. So tier 2 interventions are going to be a huge focus for the entire staff in math. We also will be implementing quick checks, which is part of our math curriculum. So again, this would be a teacher-driven thing to help work with our students. My teachers are excellent. They work really hard and work together a whole lot. We're still pushing to work to get even better at what we do. But one of those things, those quick checks that happen during their universal instruction, they will rearrange groups of students after they find out what they know and don't know, and try to close those gaps or extend students beyond that learning. So we're really focusing on that for the classroom teachers. Strategy number 3 is math intervention. I've hired 2 great math interventionists who are former teachers from the school district of Beloit, and now will be doing the math intervention. I had the option of 1 or 2 people, and I chose 2 people to be able to really hone in on getting more students in there and closing those gaps as much as we possibly can to push us forward in math. In literacy, we have had some strengths in terms of our Hispanic and white students growing in proficiency over time, in terms of our forward exam. Writing was one of the strengths in our forward exam as well. We do again see some more growth in MAPS in certain cohorts, especially in our ELL population and our Hispanic students for English language arts. Our goal then again, because of MAP being a predictor, is to really hone in on making sure that we get that 3 to 5% growth from our students. And so with that, we have the following 3 strategies. So I have a reading specialist who has been trained in dealing with teachers on how to look at their student data and to coach them on how to make sure we're changing that data within the classroom and work side by side with them. So there's a big transition in our coaching model, which was before more about the teacher and now more about what don't our students know and how we can make those improvements and change the game for our students, so to speak. One of our main things, we have hashtag level up. That's kind of our thing at Gaston, so we're working on leveling up everything that we do. Strategy number 2. So the first strategy, let me go back, I'm sorry, is again, attributed to my wonderful staff and my reading specialists to make sure that we're working to move kids forward. Strategy number 2 will be happening in our staff meetings. So as we look at our ELA data in terms of forward exam, I still wasn't happy exactly with the writing component, and I feel like we need to work a little bit more on our reading and writing connection in terms of English language arts. So during our staff meetings twice a month, we will be working on writing study groups as a staff. So we have an initial assessment that we give kids at the beginning of the year. We're going to score them together, analyze them together, and talk about things to do to move writers. And from there, we will continue to ask staff to bring in writing samples twice a month and say, hey, so-and-so is having a hard time with this. Let's talk as a group, because my goal is that the teachers continue to move forward and level up as a group. All right. So we want to continue to grow in that area. And so we're going to do some writing study groups. I've really been working with the staff to try to talk about, that forward exam, that test that's so important. That starts way back with all of our kids. And so we have to, from 4K all the way to 3rd, make sure that we're really promoting the writing and the reading and the math. All right. And strategy number 3, we'll be focusing on tier 2 interventions as well. Teachers have been trained, they have the matrix, and they have my reading specialist right there to help support them along the way. Again, we would use the student intervention team process to move students in and out and to watch and monitor with my SIT team. The last goals that we're working on is about our learning environment. We have really, really worked hard, and I have to applaud my teachers that we've worked hard on this common language that if you're sitting in one classroom and you're sitting in another classroom, everyone says the same thing all the time. And so I have to also really give props to my guidance counselor for that. She really works hard to make sure that she's in every classroom all the time beyond what she's supposed to be doing. She's going over and above. The teachers are sitting in the lessons, hearing her say different things for kids about growth mindset, about leveling up, about expectations, and then they're using them in the classroom with the kids during literacy and in math. And I think that's a big thing that we've been working on for the last 3 years, and it's really starting to seem like we're all on the same page with that. And so that's a huge strength for us. Recognizing students as well. I think we've done a great job at that, and we will continue to work on that because there's always room for improvement. At Gaston Elementary School, we believe in a growth mindset. We've been working on that for the last 4 years. We work on it with students, we work on it with staff, and we work on it with parents as well, thinking about how to move students past that. And that was one of the great things that we moved in terms of our major behaviors to our minor behaviors. We were trying to teach kids not to have that fixed mindset, like, oh, math is too hard, and then they shut down and they throw a book. So, no, we want to talk about math might be hard right now, you just don't have it yet. And so we go from there and talk about, okay, what do you do? What are your strategies? And now we can start talking about what to do with math, and we can help you with this part, and people are here for you. And so we've been working on that for 3 years, and we're getting there. So I really want to celebrate that as a strength. So in the learning environment, I work with my PBIS team, my Positive Behavior and Intervention Support team, and we looked at we have 3 major goals: engaging the staff, making sure that they are working together more, whether it be in staff meetings, whether it be grade level meetings or whatever, working together more to come to a common goal. And so we really are going to focus on that collective effort together so we can move as a team. Strategy number 2 would be to engage our students, making sure that they understand those expectations and how they're supposed to do things, what's the right way to do it, what's the wrong way to do it, how do we fix it? If we're not there yet, how do we get there? So students would be the next thing. We use that also with the student engagement. The new behavior intervention position is very important because that person is working and checking in and out with teachers, trying to figure out, hey, where's so-and-so at? You know, what do you need from us? Do we need to bring the student to sit? And we've been trying to be proactive in terms of finding out before we get 15 office referrals on the kid, exactly what is it that we can do to get a plan together. So actually having that position has been wonderful for the building. And our last strategy is engaging parents. We normally engage our parents in family events, so that will continue again this school year. But this year we've tried 2 different programs. So this year my 4K, and I appreciate them, so I have to really make sure I shout them out, has decided to take on academic parent-teacher teams. And so those teams have the teachers focus on literacy and math goals for students, and it engages the families in a different way, so we don't have traditional conferences. And so families will be able to see, they will get practice activities of what to do at home. I know, my 4K was only supposed to pick 1 goal. They wanted 2. They couldn't stand the fact that they had to pick between math and literacy, so they want 2 goals, and they want to work. And so there's a lot of things that go around that. So we're really excited to have academic parent-teacher teams and really get parents to be involved in the academic part of their kids' life. We really believe at Gaston Elementary School that it starts early, and so therefore I put a lot of my focus this year on early. Like, as soon as you step into our building, this is how we do business, and this is how we want things to progress. And so the second thing that we added was a Head Start program. So we have a collaboration with Head Start. And so I have a classroom where I have a district teacher and a Head Start teacher, and our students are receiving all types of services. They have a social worker. They have, we have people in there all the time assessing them. We know a lot about these students. And so it helps, we know all the physical, we're knowing all kinds of academic things. And so I'm really excited for that collaboration. Again, setting the stage for academics right away as soon as they hit 4K. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Next, we have Principal Melody Wargo for Todd Elementary School.
Okay, Brandy's taller than I am, so. Good evening. Melody Wargo, principal at Todd. I have to say that I have to follow Joe because I have to get part of my kids ready to go to his school, so that's my dubious task to get them as excited as he is about his school. But Todd is a growing school. Our numbers go up and down, but I said today we have 88 4-year-olds walking down the hallway to try to get to lunch at this moment in time, so that's always fun. But I think our vision and Todd is that we want to make all kids want to be there and learn, and we want it to be a safe place. We want to have fun, but we also want them to want to learn. So I'll just go through a few of our strengths. When we started digging through our data, and we do that continually, but when we sat down to work on our SIP plan in June, we looked at some of the things that we did well at. And in math, one of the things we've really focused on is closing that gap. And we saw a big increase in our students of African American ethnicity showing proficiency or advanced, and there was a large growth spike in that data on our forward exam, which was something we had really been working on, so that was nice to see. One area we know we still need to continue working on is our ESL students. We're trying to figure out where we're missing the boat there, and we're working on that. So our MAP data is showing growth. We have new resources there, and we're working on making sure that we have fidelity of implementation there. Literacy, our students, we're drilling down and looking at those basic skills and trying to figure out what are they missing in their reading skills. we get map data, we can really go into it and look, okay, are they looking at informational text? Are they looking at foundational skills? What do we need to work on? And then our learning environment, one of the strengths that has been, we've worked really hard on the last couple of years. We're part of a mental health grant, and we're working on trauma-informed care. We have one of our teachers that spent 2 weeks of her summer getting trained in mindfulness training, so we're bringing some of that to the classroom. We have a strong belief that kids come with a lot of baggage these days, and they just need to take a breath, and we have to get them there, and we have to teach them the skills to do that. So we're working on that with some of our most difficult students. As Mrs. Herford said, the behavior specialist has been something that I think is going to really help us, because part of her goal is to try to be preventative before we get to the reactive stage. So we looked at our goals. What can we really increase and what can we work on? Because as Joe and Brandy said, you know, that forward exam looms over us because that's what we're being measured by at the state level. But we decided that if we could really look at our kids and increase the number of students that scored in the average to above average range, in this one area, operations and algebraic thinking is where they seem to be struggling, by 3 to 5%, it would make a difference in our overall. And that was in math. And in literacy, the same type of thing. We're seeing increases in pockets. They do well in kindergarten and first grade, but then sometimes they start sliding off in second and third grade. So we're trying to figure out why that's happening. So those are targets that we're working on. And then our learning environment, as I said earlier, we truly believe it's about deepening our relationships with kids. We had a discussion today, actually. If kids don't trust us and feel they're safe, they won't share things that are going on. We can't get them to listen to us. So that's one of our goals to work on. The strategies, I'll go back a little bit. The thing that we feel like is most important, though, is that our kids are coming into the door, and we have a lot of new kids this year, so we're trying to figure out how to get them to fit into our climate. So we spent a lot of time on PBIS. I would tell you that we're 3 weeks into school, and we're still working on cool tools. We're still teaching some of those positive behaviors. So how we're going to get there? Again, action steps, we've all talked about some of these same things. Our building leadership team works directly with our PLCs to help them dig through the data. We have a math interventionist that's full-time this year, and she was a teacher in our building, so she knows a lot of our students. She's already started working with groups. We're looking at kids that struggling in one or two areas, and sometimes just a little one-on-one time with them or small group time will get them over that little hump that they need. And then one of our strategies that we really want to work on is providing time for teachers to get in and watch other teachers teach. Because I think that sometimes we get in our own little silos and we don't have a chance to see and learn from each other. So we've been planning a rotation as to how we can have a kindergarten teacher go watch our kindergarten peers teach and then have a debriefing and talk about those. So that's one strategy we're working on this year. You know, we have the FOI walks. We're doing the fact fluency. They have Dreambox. And we have the PLCs twice a month as everyone else. We've talked a lot about our monolingual classes. We're going to do Words Their Way. That's a strategy we're working on this year that we haven't done because we've decided that vocabulary development is a concern for some of our students. So that's a new, we work on vocabulary, but that's a new program we're using this year. Providing a lot of professional development. Brandy talked a lot about the reading specialists, and their role has changed somewhat. They're doing more of a coaching model. We know that our reading specialists can't provide all the interventions that kids need, so we need to coach up that universal instruction so we don't have to have as many interventions. The reading and writing we're seeing growth in. We're in our, I want to say, 4th year of using Lucy Calkins' Reader's Workshop, and kids are writing and reading more. I'm seeing more stamina in reading. I'm seeing more kids enjoying writing. And so it's just now tweaking it, making it better for them. So I think those are the major things with math and reading. We have a philosophy at school that if our kids are going to have a growth mindset, we have to have a growth mindset also. So every year we do a book study. We're actually doing a couple this year. But the first book we're endeavoring this year is called Lost at School. And the whole purpose of that book study is it gives you strategies and things to deal with kids that maybe are struggling to find their place in school. So We just started that book study. We're focusing, it's some of you that have been around a long time, like I have, we're focusing back on the old character traits, and we're trying to tie our cool tools with those and focusing on one a month so that kids realize, okay, if you're getting called down to the office for a gotcha prize, this month it was because you're being very respectful. If you're student of the week this week, it's because this month we're focusing on respect. And so because it seemed like we talked about those, but they still weren't internalizing. So we're trying to make them understand that if you're being rewarded for behavior, what are you being rewarded for? So we did review our school climate survey. We looked at all of those things when we were looking at data. Most of our kids are happy there, according to our data. Most of our teachers are happy there. When we looked at our discipline data, there are about 5% of our students that give us most of our discipline data. Most of our kids do the right thing all the time. They might have to come in and have a little discussion. We do some restorative circles, but it's not to the level that requires a referral. So it's working with those 5 to 7% that are still struggling that, we're always trying to find the answer for. We are also embarking upon APTT this year. We know that we have parents that were involved. We would have a family night, and sometimes we'd have 250 people there. But it was, just come in, talk. We might have a math or a literacy focus. Well, we're trying to figure out how to bridge the gap between home and school. And the whole purpose really of APTT is that you're helping the parents understand how to help you at home. And so we're doing ours in 4K and first grade this year with the hopes that we can do it school-wide next year. So we're right in that training process at this point. We all had training last week, and we had a lively Wednesday last week because the teachers were so excited about the things that they think they can share with parents in a different way. The formatting of conferences will be totally different. You have 70-minute meeting with your families. It's a group effort. You work together. You look at data. You talk about what your child needs to do to get better at a particular skill. So we're hoping that will help us bridge that gap. And one of the things that was interesting when we looked at the APT training was that people think that kids spend all their time at school. But when we looked at the graphics, they're really only at school less than 25% of their year. The rest of the time they're at home or they're out in the community. And so we have to somehow bridge that partnership. And families want to help, and they do help, but we're hoping we can hone it in on the skills that they really need to work on. So again, we have a lot of professional learning planned. We'll continue working through our trauma-informed care units. We're at the Tier 2 level at this point, and a lot of it is about self-care for staff at this point. So those are the major things going on at Todd. We're very busy, and you're welcome to come see us anytime. Kids love for people just to come in and read with them or spend time with them or have lunch with them. So you're welcome anytime. Thank you. Questions? Are there questions? Nope. Okay.
Next, principal of Hackett Elementary School, Ryan McReynolds.
All right. How's everyone doing tonight? Wonderful. First of all, it's a great honor and privilege to be here tonight to talk about my school. I could talk about Hackett for hours. I was new a year ago, and I feel very fortunate to be selected as the next principal of Hackett, and it's hard to believe that now I'm on year 2. Time flies, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. I absolutely love Hackett. I feel so fortunate. We are, like Joe said, it's a family. It's a community. That's what we want. That's what our teachers feel. They're so invested in the school, and our families are so giving. Even the families that don't have anything to give, they want to give and they want to help out. It's just a really unique, special school, and it's a hidden gem in Beloit, and they need us. Our families need us. Our students need us, and we know that. And the teachers and the staff who are there, we want to be there because we want to make a change in their life, and I feel like we're doing that. So I want to talk about some of the highlights that we're going to focus on, things that we're doing, things I'm proud of, because this is my chance to sell it to you guys, because we'd love to have you here at Hackett anytime. You're all welcome to come out. Miss Charles was there last year as a lunch buddy, so we'd love to see all you guys out. We'll get you a lunch buddy. A little plug right there. We were fortunate enough, the district provided us remodeled classrooms. It looks beautiful. Kids notice that right away when they return from summer break. We have air conditioning, so if other schools here don't, I apologize, but we're enjoying it on the hot days. Beautiful tile, dimmable lights. It's just, our school is beautiful, and it's a school that our staff and our students and our families are proud of. So that's very important to speak on. One of the big initiatives that we're rolling out this year is Responsive Classroom. Responsive Classroom is about, again, building that community, creating those relationships with our students and making them feel like school is home. I was on the playground today, and I had a student come up and said, Mr. McReynolds, I love it at Hackett. This is my home. I love it. I want to be here. I don't want to go home. I said, well, you have to go home, but we're so happy that you love it here. So it's just creating that atmosphere where they are, they feel welcome. They have someone in the building they can identify with and someone they can talk to. So I feel like we're really knocking that out of the park. And again, hats off to my teachers, staff, everyone. They work their tails off and they're underappreciated, but we see what they're doing, and we love them, and I wouldn't trade them for the world. One of the initiatives that we're focused on again this year is Read 100,000. Literacy for Life is a huge push in the district, and that's a huge focus at our school. So our challenge at Hackett this year is for our students to read 100,000 books this year, and we've already read 7,000. The year just started, so they're so happy. They come to school, and they want to fill a little box or put a little sticker on the chart, and we're filling them up. So I told them, let's fill it up as quickly as we can. I want to say Robinson completed it sometime last year in March or April. Mr. Carter, if you're watching at home, we're going to beat you. So also, we, again, try to create that relationship, that home-school relationship. So our ELL department, we do home visits. We do it 3 times a year. It started in kindergarten and then expanded as those kids went to first grade, and now they're second graders. So we had those relationships established with our families, and we find out so much about, where they are, who they are, what their hopes and dreams are for their students, and we can incorporate that and, express that to our staff. And it just, again, kind of, it for a lot of families, it creates that barrier comes down. School has always been such a, for whatever reason for them, maybe a scary place or a place they don't feel comfortable, but now they have someone who's coming into their home 3 times a year at least, and they know that they have someone who's watching out for their child at school and that has their back and knows their story. So it's just, something that I'm so proud of that we're doing, and we're going to continue to make time in the day to invest in that. And again, I said it before, with Responsive Classroom, it's all about the hopes and dreams, and that's what we want for our students to have those hopes and dreams, and for us to be the facilitators and to lead them to those hopes and dreams. So thank you for listening. Again, lunch buddy, let me know when you're available. I'll pair you up with a great student or two. We'll see you at Hackett.
Thank you. Fruzen Intermediate School, Matt Kleinschmidt.
I'm a little taller than he is, so sorry. So Fruzen Intermediate, one of our sort of themes for this school year is find your why. We had expectations assemblies with all of our students the past few weeks, and I'm trying to talk to students about finding your why, meaning why do you come to school? Why are you here? Why do your parents send you here? Really trying to drive some of that purpose aspect of what education can serve for students, because it is our belief that if students don't see value in what they're doing every day, then they don't put that effort into it that we want to see them. In addition to that, the Find Your Why has carried over to staff as well, and my conversations with them about everything that we do should be purpose-driven while we're inside the building here. Why are we dealing with this incident instead of this one? as we prioritize what we do. Why are we teaching the way that we're teaching? Why are we addressing the things that we're addressing? I think that that's a big piece that we're trying to drive with everybody is why. Another one of the things that we're really focused on, and we have been since the start of our school, was, we have over 600 students in our building, and it's easy for some of them to get lost in the shuffle and lost in the mix, if you will. So trying to individualize what we're doing and trying to make sure that we make those connections so that students kind of feel, and parents and families feel, that we call it that Frusen family feel. So it's all F's, so it works out great for me. So, so to look at some of our strengths we've seen in the building, we tend to focus on map data in the building because map data is really what we use to drive our instruction. We use forward data to tell us kind of where we're at. I think about it as a summative assessment. I think it's always important to know what it is because that's the stick by which you're measured. But when you think about, what are the information that you use more on a day-to-day basis that drives what teachers are doing, map data is a huge piece for that, that gives us an idea where our students are at. So as we focus on that, what we see is some of our students tend to, not some, our students overall do surpass the district mean on the MAP test for both math and literacy, so that's something that we're proud of, but it's not something that we try to sit back and rest on our laurels. We're always still trying to push our students in regard to that. And looking at that, over the past few years, as we looked at some of our subgroups, our 7th and 8th grade students have performed just at or slightly below the national norm for the MAP test. So that's kind of a feather in our cap that we're continuing to try to work toward. In literacy, our grades 6 through 8 are all performing very close to the national norm, 1 to 2 points away from, our overall mean. So I think those are some strengths that we're pretty proud of for math and literacy. When it comes to the learning environment, similar to what you see in all the other schools, 75% of our students have received 1 or fewer referrals as of last year, and 88% of our students are in the PBIS green or yellow zone that it's considered, which meaning they have 5 or fewer referrals. So now that's not to say that those other 12% don't generate a significant amount of work for significant people, but it's definitely something. I had an interesting conversation. We hired a new security officer today, and we had a few people that were out today that are key players in our day-to-day dealings, and so it was kind of a rough day for he and I, and some of those things. And at one point, he just kind of said to me, like, how do you not get bogged down in some of this stuff when you're just this busy, all over the place every day? And I said, well, when I'm having one of those days where I'm find myself looking around going, what's going on here? I go and I find some of the kids that I know are doing the right thing, and I call them down to my office and I ask them what their favorite candy is, and I go buy them something and I give them something, or I try to reward them somehow and remind myself that the majority of the students that we're working with are here because they know their why and they know what they're coming to school for. They're working toward the right purpose. I said, well, you have to keep focus on that because sometimes we have to deal with, kids that aren't making good choices more often than we have to deal with the kids that are. And it's really important to remind yourself why you're here and why you're doing what you're doing, because there are some absolutely amazing kids. The majority, all of our kids, they're amazing kids. They need what they need, and we got to give them what they need. So it was a great conversation as I reminded him of that, as I sort of reminded myself of that, because it was a long one, but let's see here. One of the things we're also super proud of, we were recognized at the PBIS level for our Tier 1 implementation at the bronze level, so that was an exciting award that we received for last year. So progress that we're making, we've really tried to use our PLC to focus to allow our teachers to work together. We have great people doing great things, but they need to know what those things are in someone else's classroom. Like Mr. Brydock mentioned earlier, it's easy to get sucked into your own little world where you see what you're doing and you don't see the great things other people that are doing, or you don't have that voice of other people to say, hey, you could try this, you could try that, here are ways to push yourself. So, we ask our teachers to kind of put their egos away and sit down with one another and really inspect their practice and get into that. So it's interesting to sit in those classrooms and hear those conversations as our staff push one another, and something I'm really proud of them for. Areas for growth. Our students tend to struggle in stats and probability and measurement and data. So one of the areas that we're looking at is trying to take like measurement and data and pushing it cross-categorical. You know, we have a tech ed teacher who teaches measurement all the time. So how can we tie what he's doing in class into, the forward test? How can we relate some of those things to the areas where our students need to improve? A science teacher can easily sit back and say, well, I don't teach math, but you teach measurement and data every single day. That is the heart and soul of science. So what can you do cross-categorically to get involved with that? And I'm really excited. I had one of my teachers who reached out to me and our math coach and said, hey, I don't teach math, but I think what I'm doing can easily apply to that. What strategies do you have for me? And so we're trying to connect them right now to really come up with some key strategies that he can use in his classroom to really try and push his students in regard to math. Because when we look at our overall scores, we are higher in reading than we are in math. And I think that's a key piece for us to focus on is, what else can we do to implement those kinds of things? So we're looking at that right now as well. In literacy, vocabulary and acquisition is a huge piece. And so we're trying to work with our reading specialists to not just teach kids vocabulary, but to teach kids strategies for acquiring vocabulary. We can throw flashcards in front of them all day long, but if they get away from the set words that they know, they need to know how to figure out what a word means. So our reading specialists are working to implement and deliver and work with our teachers on, all right, what are some strategies that we can use? Again, not just in literacy, but across categorically. I don't care what you teach, you can be teaching those strategies. From the front office, when I sit down to talk to kids about what does this word mean to you, if we're talking about words like integrity and character, from, to the Phi Ed class where we're talking about words like, I'm trying to think of what that game with the net in the middle where they bounce a ball off there, and they got all their own terms for all these different kinds of things, So I think that's a piece that we're trying to get everybody to do building wide. We also, in our building, have a significant achievement gap, as we see in the entire district. And one thing that we're trying to do with that, and we've talked to our staff, this is a repetitive theme for them, as we talk about knowing your students and knowing your individual kids that are in your classrooms. So one thing that I challenge my staff of every single year is, do you know what your achievement gap is in your classroom? Do you know what your achievement gap is in your second period springboard class? Do you know who the students are that are lagging behind and who the students are that are ahead and why? And I challenge my staff to get individual with that and say, what's your achievement gap? Because if you can focus on your achievement gap, because if we look building wide, we're looking at, 50, 60, 100. I mean, those are separate numbers. But when we go down and we drill down into the individual classroom, we can say to a staff member, if you can take these 4 kids and push them, man, the difference that's going to make for us inside of our entire building. And while you're pushing them, you're pushing your entire class. I'm not trying to say that we should individualize and, we're only going to worry about these 4. Not by any means. So I think that's a key piece for our staff is, in dealing with that achievement gap is, knowing what your gap is for you in your classroom, not just us as a building as a whole. So our goals, we're looking to increase the number of our students that are considered proficient in the MAP test, which is the 51st percentile or above, by 3%. I know 3% seems like kind of like a small number, but when you really break it down and look at how many kids is that, 3% can actually, I'm assured by my curriculum people that 3 to 5% range is right where you're at. We're going to check that mid-year, and we deliver the MAP test a second time, and if we find out that we're at 6%, well, then that goal is going up. I can guarantee you that. And if we're finding out that we're struggling to hit the 3%, then we dig back in and say, okay, where are we struggling? What are the specific things we need to look at, and what can we do about it? So some of our key strategies, like I talked about before, focusing on measurement and data in all content areas across the board. Our reading specialists are trying to focus on more of a coaching model in our 4th and 5th grade levels, because we have noticed that some of our younger students seem to be struggling more in literacy. So we want to try to get in there and look at, again, not just the teacher coaching model, but the coaching of looking at where are students at and what do students need. So looking at what does a teacher need to do, and in addition to that, what are the needs of these individual students? So more of a student-driven teaching model as well, or coaching model as well. Another piece we're trying to do is last year when we looked at staff data and the staff satisfaction, I guess, of what was happening inside of our building, that was one where some of our staff members didn't feel recognized for the accomplishments that the contributions, I should say, that they made to our building. So I've worked with some of our staff members this year to already talk about, hey, what can we do to increase recognition for that? And I won't mention her name because she asked me not to, but I had a teacher who came to me just last week. She came to Miss Bly, my assistant principal, and myself and said, here are some ways that you guys can recognize us, and these are things that I think would be a big impact. And we've already put those into place, and I'm already getting the emails about, hey, thanks for the little thing here and there. And it's amazing, just the little things, a packet of extra gum with a note on it that says thanks for going the extra mile, that all of a sudden just makes people feel warm and recognized for what they're doing. So we're trying really hard to hold one another accountable, Ms. Bly and myself, about who are you recognizing on a daily basis for their contributions inside of our building, because we have so many amazing people doing so many amazing things, and they need to hear about it and they need to know about it. So I'll be quick. The last couple of things we're looking at, one thing that I'm really excited about, and this is in its preliminary thing, but we just ran a little bullying screener. We hear a lot about bullying, and I want to give credit to Devon LaRosa for this piece as he talked. He's a principal over at Cunningham. And he and Michelle and Joe and myself really have tried to work hard this year to get together and collaborate on a lot of what we're doing. And we put together a little 3-question bullying screener, and we have some preliminary data from that we delivered to our 6th grade class. And it was interesting. I sat down with 2 people today and said to them, if I asked you what percentage of our students do you think would answer yes, and here are the questions that we asked was, do you feel intimidated, threatened, or in fear of another student or student at school? I was getting these, what percentage of our students do you think would say yes? And I was getting these numbers that I thought were crazy high. They were like, I think over half our students would say yes to that. When in reality, we found with this small sample of what our student is, about a fifth of our building, almost 84% of our students stated no. They are not in fear or intimidated by those that they come to school with. I was so excited to get this data back that over 80% of our students are saying, no, I have not been forced or pressured to do things or participate in activities with other students at school that I didn't want to do, which included, they couldn't say yes for classwork or things like that, but we still did get one in there, yes. When I don't want to do an activity in gym, I have to do it anyway. So that data might be skewed. I'm not sure on that one, but skewed toward the negative side. So that's, and the last one, do you feel threatened, teased, or intimidated through a cell phone, iPad, or computer by another student from our school? 88% of our students are answering, no, I do not. Now, again, this is preliminary data, and we're going to take those numbers and run and talk to individual students that we can talk to about what do you see, what's happening, what issues do we need to address from there. But I'm so excited to get, again, it's preliminary, but I'm so excited to get that data back and hear about the perception of our students of what they're doing. So, family and community engagement, we're looking at trying to put together we're going to call them parent academies quarterly, where we can meet with some parents and bring them in directly to talk to them about what can we teach, what can we show them, whether it be through the website, through Skyward, through some strategies that they can use at home for their students. And I'll end it there because I know you've got a big agenda in front of you, so I apologize for the time. But we have great kids doing great things every day. We have great staff members doing awesome things, and I'm so excited to be able to be a part of the School District of Beloit, to work with amazing people and amazing kids. So thank you.
So tonight you've heard from 5 of our principals. Their school improvement plan next month. You'll hear from the rest of our principals. So be prepared for a long night then as well. But the reason we're doing this is for a variety of reasons. One of the things that we hear often is, well, what are they doing about it? We're doing a ton of things about trying to improve outcomes for kids, providing them with that learning environment, focusing on these areas. Everyone says, well, how are you connecting with families, community support, and reaching out to businesses for their support? We are. Every one of our buildings have a strategic goal set on it. Every one of our teachers have a goal that says they must also focus on it inside their classroom. So I hope you saw the running themes. With that, would you have any questions for our principals? Because we have one more presentation that will focus on professional development. And I want to make sure that the principals were here to receive any comments or questions that you may have related to their school improvement plan.
I do this every time. What I'd be interested in, because there's a lot of good stuff we heard tonight, would be at the end of the school year, the benchmarks. Do we get to where we want to go? And even if we didn't, that's okay, because, okay, what did we learn from that so we can take it to the next level?
Actually, you'll be receiving a mid-year report after the MAP data. So somewhere in, I would anticipate January, February, you will receive another update from the principals, and then you will receive an end-of-the-year update as well.
I'm interested in the family engagement, the community engagement, and dates that maybe we could visit with families. I know I've gone to some family engagements in the past at Hackett, and I think I did at Todd. I can't remember what other schools, but it's just nice to know those dates. And I know Todd includes the board on her newsletter, and it would be nice to have the board included on your newsletters as well. So.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you all very much. It was really, really wonderful to hear from you all and to hear the enthusiasm and all you're doing for the kids. And we appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And so one of the things that, as I shared in the previous slide, is that we are focused on improving outcomes for everyone. And so a key part of that is providing training, workshops, professional development. Our Director of Assessments and Professional Development, Mrs. Charles Cheney, is going to provide an update on our professional development thus far for our staff. And as you listen to her presentation, also make those same connections to how are they connected to our strategic plan? Are they aligned? Are they connected? And you will definitely see that everything we do is connected to those 4 areas and supporting buildings and staff with reaching those goals.
Good evening. Again, my name is Charles Cheney, and I'm the Director of Data, Assessment, and Professional Development. And I'll briefly share with you some of our professional development that took place over the summer. Very busy time for us, especially at the beginning of the year as well. So I'll go over some professional development that took place starting in June all the way up through our first week of professional development in August.
Could I interrupt just briefly?
Yes.
I'm so sorry, but a citizen is letting me know that this is not visible on the television. Is there anything we can do to make it clearer or not? And then you can, pardon? You can continue now. I just wanted to see if there was something our staff could do to correct that. Thank you, and I'm sorry about the interruption.
You're fine. It's okay. Okay. So here we always like to keep our mission and vision in mind with everything that we do. We try to connect it back to our mission, our vision, our motto, as well as our strategic plan. So I just briefly put that up here. Also, throughout the presentation, you may see some terms that you're not familiar with. So I tried to pull out a few of those that may, be a little confusing. And there's some definition of terms here. For example, AVID. In education, we love to use acronyms. But AVID is advancement via individual determination. You'll hear that a lot at the high school, as well as it's being rolled out at our intermediate schools, and eventually it will go down to our elementary schools as well. Go Math, that's one of our math programs in K-6. And then Big Ideas is also another math program in our middle grades. Dreambox is an interactive program that students use for math as well. And then Houghton Mifflin, HMH, another acronym there. Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, it's a company that provides our curriculum for math and science as well. And then one that I was confused about that was new to me, iQuest, you'll hear that, but that's one of our science terms. It's investigating and questioning our world through science and technology. And then the last one that we have up there is EduClimber. You may have heard that over the past year, year and a half. EduClimber is going to be basically our data warehouse. So any assessments that we take will be housed in there. It also holds our attendance and discipline data. Basically, it's a one-stop shop for our staff members to go and pull any data that they need so that they can make decisions around student learning. So that's just some terms that I decided to pull out. If you see some others as I'm going through the presentation that don't sound familiar, or you want a little feedback on, just kind of wave your hand and I'll give you that as well. So our math department, this is some of the PD that took place over the summer. And then I have the PD that it was, and then the participants, the people that actually took place in that. So student-centered coaching, our math coaches took part in that. Go Math, there's that term there. That for our K-5 teachers, they participated in that. And then Big Ideas. That was for our 6-8 algebra, geometry, and algebra 2 teachers. And then also AGA, trigonometry, calculus, and vertical alignment. That was for our secondary math teachers. Our science department, here's a list of PD that took place over the summer for our science teachers. And you can see we hit every group there. We have our primary teachers as well as our intermediate and high school teachers. Whatever area that they're teaching in, they receive professional development over the summer. And then also with our literacy department, same thing there. K-5 teachers, our directors, our reading specialists, and then also 6-12 teachers receive some sort of professional development this summer. And then this is pupil services, a lot there because we have a lot of people in that department. We have our special ed teachers, we have our paras and psych and social workers. It's a big department, so there's a ton of professional development that was provided for them this year or this summer. DLI, our DLI teachers received lots of professional development and Ready Up, Palabras a su paso. How did I do? Okay. And they also had a data retreat as well. And then the second part of that is our district administrators, so like the directors, assistant superintendents, principals, assistant principals. This is some of the PD that they received over the summer. We have WestEd, and that will actually be continuing throughout the course of the year. The WestEd leadership training, that's for our assistant superintendents, directors, the principals, and the assistant principals. And like I said, that'll be ongoing throughout the course of the year, taking the place of our principal meetings. We're excited about that. And then EduClimber, we had our crisis training, and then Frontline, and Frontline is our portal where we house our evaluations. And then there's HR also uses Frontline for like ASAP and for our subs and all of that. So, and then this is the CTE, the Career Tech Ed department. Lots of PD for our teachers, our CTE teachers, as well as the directors. Technology department for our tech coaches, they also receive some PD. And then our 4K department, lots of PD for them and our directors as well. And then this is just some other PD, not specific to any particular department, but all of our schools had their data retreats that took place in June, where the administrators as well as their leadership team, they really dove into their data over the course of the year, which was mapped. They also they didn't have the forward, because we know that we always get forward data later in the summer, but we'll be taking a look at that here in the upcoming months. But they spent a couple of days, I think 2 or 3 days, 3 days with their leadership team to really look at their data, dig into it, and set some goals for this upcoming school year. So that took place in June. Skyward, of course, for different departments. Skyward is not just for HR or finance, but it's for our teachers as well. And then EE, which is our evaluation system there. So this is just a little bit of feedback over all of that PD that we received over the summer. If you take a look at the green part there, I know it's a little fuzzy there, but basically the teachers that attended and responded to the evaluations, because we know not everyone responded, but the people that did respond, this is what we received. 66% of our staff said that it was meaningful to them, and then 20% was neutral. We kind of want to bump that into the into the met needs category, but then only 12% said that the PD did not meet their needs. And we'll take a look at that bottom section there where it says least beneficial part of the PD. What I did was there's in the evaluation there's a section where for comments, so I looked for common threads throughout that, and these are the things that stood out the most. For the least beneficial part was that we had too many days. So that beginning of the year PD, teachers are kind of anxious to get back into their classrooms and get set up and get ready for the school year, so that 5 days seemed a bit much for our staff. So that was one common thread there. We know that we're all in one location, and we know August is like one of the hottest times of the year. So we kind of got some feedback that the rooms were too hot and too crowded. Because there was some transition period with student data, there was a lack of access to materials that they would like to use when they were looking at their SIP plans and things like that. They would have liked more access to student data. And then you see the not enough time in classrooms. That's teachers wanting to be in their buildings and in their classrooms setting up. So, but beneficial parts, we got a lot of positive feedback on the new science curriculum that is being rolled out. They loved having time with their colleagues. We know that anytime you can sit down with your colleagues and have a discussion and talk about what's coming up for the year, some of the new exciting things that they're going to do, they love to do that there. And then also having time with their principals and the rest of their staff to look at their MAP data and the training for MAP skills and all of those things. So those were the highlights of the PD. And then this is just a brief summary of the people that responded. These are the sessions that were mostly attended. As you can see, student services. And student services within there also is built in learning environment PD. So I just kind of plug that all into one category. And then content area is specific. It's math. It's whatever they're teaching, and that's where a lot of people spent their time. And PLCs is kind of similar. So a lot of teachers spent some time with their colleagues in their content area, and we called it a PLC. But that can kind of go along with content area. But then the other areas are EE, educator effectiveness, EduClimber, LGBTQ, and then restorative practice. So those were the ones that rose to the top, where the people responded. Those are the sessions that they attended. So throughout the course of the year, we will continue to have professional development. We have 4 days that we have no students, but we'll provide PD for our teachers, and these are some of the topics that will come up. And I'm sure as we look at the evaluations and as we get feedback from our teachers, I'm sure you'll see more topics added to that list as well.
Any questions for Charo or me?
I'm just interested in the usefulness of the PD. Do you find that where he had like a small group of people, 12%, didn't find it met their needs, and the neutral, that it's more of a reluctance to change the way they do, or what do you think that is? It's a small number, but it's interesting that they just didn't find it useful.
I'm not sure, to be honest. I just take that some of them probably just found it maybe an average presentation, or just didn't find it something that was just really impactful for them. But it's encouraging that they didn't say it did not meet their needs. So I really focus on the one that says didn't meet their needs. But like Charles said, one of the things that we are going to do, we have received a lot of data from the sessions, and we continue to always receive feedback from our PD sessions, and we take that information and decide, okay, what are our next steps? You know, what professional development should we bring in to really make sure that those individuals who are neutral do turn into the green where they find it beneficial. That's our goal, is to make sure we're meeting the needs. We spend, as you are becoming aware, a lot of money on professional development, but it's a critical piece. Like any organization, in order to improve, you must continue to provide training ongoing for your staff. And that's what we're doing here in the School District Beloit.
Mr. Larson.
First, I'd like to thank you for bringing the information to us. I had mentioned at the last staff meeting, at the last staff committee meeting, you said it was on its way. I was also wondering about the usefulness of PD. Was that a question talking about the whole 5 days of PD, or was that a question asked about each specific section or session of the PD?
So at the end of each day, a survey went out, an evaluation went out, and then all of that was combined into one to give you this. So it was, over the course of the 5 days, but made into one.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Card.
I want to thank you for the presentation too, and the definitions. That was real helpful. I'm wondering about the EduClimber. Does that help with putting together IEPs? You said putting together work plans for students. I don't remember if that's something new, or is that I don't remember that term before.
So it is new to the district as of a year and a half now, and okay. Yes, it will be used to generate data related to students' performance that will inform the IEP. So it's going to be used by all of our staff eventually, because it's going to be our data warehouse where everything related to students' performance, related to not only behaviors, but other information will all be collected at one spot that we believe is going to be user-friendly for our teachers, and they can go to that data and anytime they want to within their professional learning communities or their collaboration time with their team, and pull up some data that will inform their instruction. So this is all about continuous improvement also. For those who are working in the business industry, this is what we do here. We are constantly using data to inform what we do next. And as you can tell, making action plans to determine our next moves.
I think that would be would allow more consistency in putting those IEP and 504 plans together. I also had a question. You have the percentages and the feedback from the staff who attended, but and maybe it's there, I don't recall seeing it, out of all the educators, what was the percentage of participation overall?
You are right, you did not see that. And that would be, we had a lot of participation. I would say about a little over half on the first day, and it's like it kind of trickled down by the last day to where very little participation on the last day of the evaluation. And I can get you an exact number, but I did not put that in there, but I can absolutely get that for you.
The reason why I ask is I'm wondering if your interest was skewed in that maybe on day 4 or 5, people were just kind of tired and just didn't put a lot of thought into their answers of the survey. Also, I'm thinking back a few years ago, I believe that there used to be like a two-day, full-day training, and I'm just wondering if by having it extended to 5 days, maybe that was just a little much. I'm not sure, but right. I was just kind of curious.
Yeah, I think you could be absolutely right. We have had conversation about that, and we'll continue to have conversation about that, how we can adjust it and make it more beneficial for staff.
It seems to me one of those years in there a few years ago, we even gave sort of a benefit, a financial benefit to staff as an incentive because the administrators at that time felt it was so important to have the professional development that there was just a small financial benefit to encourage people to attend, or staff to attend. So anyway, thank you for a thorough report.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Ball?
Thanks for the information, but with the surveys, and I know there's a number of surveys that are out there today, as far as, and I'm assuming that the information is being disseminated back to the staff to let them know, what your findings were and what changes you're going to be making for the following year, but doing it in a way that's communicated early enough so people aren't thinking, because I think that's one of the concerns that I think we've had and I've had, is that these surveys are done and we checked off the box. And nobody ever hears anything afterwards because nothing's done. So I would highly encourage you to get back to staff and let them know this if you haven't done that already.
Yep. And that is the plan. That concern was brought up, I believe, the last board meeting, and since then, all of our directors have been informed that we're changing our platform. We are all moving to SurveyMonkey. So we're moving to SurveyMonkey as the platform to actually collect information regarding, professional development or other things we would like to get some input from our staff on. So we're moving to that platform. And the goal is to quickly turn that data around and send all of the data in some kind of friendly fashion to staff so they can see the data themselves. And if they want to do some analysis themselves, they can do that as well. But that is our goal, is to make sure that we inform individuals more quickly. And at the end of the day, the third piece is that they see that something is happening as a result of that data. So we're on it.
Anyone else? Okay, so when you send this data out, will they have a way to give you feedback? Because we did hear a lot. I mean, I did, I think other people did, about this was too much. And they would rather be getting their classrooms ready, lesson planning, and I know professional development is important, but we heard a lot about, there was too much, and it was right before a holiday weekend, so I think some felt like then they couldn't enjoy their holiday weekend because they had to get ready for school. So is there a way to get feedback from teachers?
It is, and actually
this?
the schedule that was devised this year for professional development was done in collaboration with the association, with BA. So the model that was implemented this year, I and my directors met with the association to actually draft this calendar because they are paid for that professional development already. And there was some swapping of professional development days throughout the year. So we only have 4 PD days this year instead of usually we'd have 6 or 7 throughout the school year. We only have 4 because we moved those days up front to try to take care of the issues that happen during the school year, because usually then there's every other month there's another holiday coming, there's testing, there's a lot of other stressors that come into play for staff. So we're determined to put as much PD up front. And if you go back to that slide where it says high expectations, one of the things I want to be certain this year was making sure at the very beginning of the year that everyone who was in front of our kids were really clear on the expectations of that content area. And so we provided fresh development to support that. One of the things that we also heard were concerns related to the learning environment and student discipline. So one of the things we want to be certain of is, okay, how are we going to address that up front before the year begins, making sure we have the conversations with staff, giving them time to at least be thinking about their own classroom and buildings and what kind of planning they're going to do in connection with their school improvement plans to really turn that learning environment around. So we are always taking that data. I'm sure we're going to do what we did, I've done over the last 4 years, is to meet with the association in developing the calendar in collaboration with them. And we will find something that is mutually agreeable and meets the needs for both groups. Because it ended up being a lot of days for staff, and we understand their concerns.
What happens with those days now where there was going to be professional development during the year and there's not now?
They're contact days.
Okay.
So we just swapped out the number of teacher days.
Okay.
So now they're
All right.
actual school days.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Okay, and now we have a chance to meet our new student board representative, Lakaya Jackson. And Lakaya, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself before you give your student report.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Lakaya Jackson. I'm a senior at the high school. I'm also the senior class president. It's truly an honor to represent such a nice group of kids. I feel like the kids in the district, sometimes we get a little confused with all the changes going on, but we're optimistic, and that's what matters most. It can go a long way. So I'm going to start off with last Friday, September 21st, we had a college and career fair at the high school. It was really successful. We had a lot of students from Southern Wisconsin high schools come to our high school and learn more about secondary education, scholarships, and career opportunities such as internships and job shadows. It was really beneficial. A lot of students walked away with a little bit more knowledge than they had walking in. Also, Help Yourself students. There's a program called Help Yourself under Regina Hendricks, funded by Beloit College. We were able to attend the Chicago Classic HBCU College Fair and talk to a lot of reps from HBCUs, including Xavier, Spelman, Alabama State, and about 30 more HBCUs. We even got to watch the football game between Morehouse and Miles College at Soldier Stadium, and it was all free, which was awesome. And I'd like to personally welcome our new head principal, Dr. Ramos. So far, he's been great. His literacy implementations have certainly scared our students half to death. But we're excited and we're optimistic, and we're working hard at improving our literacy skills. Also, homecoming is next week. I'm encouraging students to be safe, understanding, and respectful towards our community as we TP and try not to damage anything. Next, I'm going to talk about parking passes at the high school. So last year, we had about 82% of our families considered low income, and we had about 700 upperclassmen. To buy a parking pass, you have to fill out an application. The parking pass costs $100 for the whole year per student. We sold about 260 passes last year. Sit back, it's okay, I did the math for you. So we made about $26,000, excluding the passes that staff purchased. We estimated that about 300 students, including myself, walked from the side streets such as 5th, 6th, and sometimes Bluff due to limited parking space. This resulted in tardiness, occasionally walking through rain and snow, and safety hazards crossing the streets. And now this year we have closed off 4th Street to create a safer environment for the students and prohibited parking on 5th Street, I think. Students now cross 6th Street, which, because of the closure of 4th Street, is a lot busier. And this year, we've only had 167 passes sold so far, which leaves way more kids walking from side streets. And that is not even half of my senior class, which is 408 students. I see them all the time crossing the streets to their cars, and I'm not going to lie, I almost hit a few of them. And our biggest question as the upperclassmen is, where's our money actually going? Because if we're paying the district when we write our check for the pass, but we get fined by the city, we're confused on what our money is actually put towards. And so we're asking that maybe it could be made more affordable, discounting the pass by 50%, which is $50 a year. It would be a lot more affordable, and maybe we could have 500 sold, which would put us at $25,000 a year, very close to the $26,000. And this would be avoiding physical and financial conveniences for the students and ensuring the safety we're seeking by allowing the students to park in the parking lot instead of 6th Street and Bluff Street and several blocks up. So we're asking the board to review the price of the parking pass and allow it to be reduced for students being brought up in harsher conditions than it may appear, as a lot of us are actually supporting ourselves. We're also asking that the seniors who take advantage of the awesome co-op and half-day opportunities have better parking pass deals. I'm actually a co-op student, and I'm only at school for about 3 hours, but I had to pay the $100 for the whole year to park my car in the parking lot, which was a little confusing, but we're optimistic, and that's what matters. With the money that we make from parking passes, we're asking that maybe we can possibly invest it back into the students, at least 50%, in forms of scholarships, travel abroad opportunities, or maybe even better ACT prep for the students, because my class average last year when we took it was a 14, which out of 36 is harsh. So we're asking that that be reviewed. And then next, Yonder pouches. So we implemented the new Yonder policy where students put their phone in the pouch when they come in and unlock it as they leave. Overall, it's pretty successful. Students say that they forget they have a phone when the phone is in the pouch, which is awesome. It limits the distractions in the classroom. But most students are finding the pouches easily destructible. A lot of them are prying them open, actually, and breaking the little magnetic piece that closes the pouch so it won't stay shut, which tricks teachers so that they think the pouch is shut, but then the students are on their phone while they're teaching. Which makes most students feel that the pouches were a waste of funds and that it could have went towards their biggest distraction, being lack of AC during the summer months and heat during the winter months. So we're also asking that the board review this policy and instead of spending the $12,000 it takes to take on Yonder pouches next year, to choose a cheaper route maybe and enforce a no cell phone policy in a more strict manner without a purchase phone barrier. Or use a different method that just costs less money, such as a box that everyone sets their phone in as they walk through the door in the morning. And that concludes everything. Thank you.
Ms. Jackson, every year I'm amazed at our student reps, and this is no exception. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
I mean, really, and this is a really important role you have. I'm sure you know that.
Mm-hmm.
And you just did us a great service by communicating everything you did. And first of all, I didn't know you couldn't park on 5th Street. I thought that was one of the places you were supposed to park.
Wait, say that one more time?
5th Street.
Oh, yeah. A lot of students thought that it was prohibited, so a lot of them weren't parking on 5th Street.
I thought it was allowed. It was north and middle that was no parking. So I don't know, maybe we need to communicate that better.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, how do you see the flow of traffic in the morning and the afternoons now in that parking lot with the drop-off and everything?
It's actually a lot better than last year. Sometimes it gets a little confusing because you have kids walking from their cars to the front doors, but then parents trying to get through. And I know a lot of parents aren't morning people because they haven't had to go to school in like 30 years. So you get a lot of middle fingers, honestly, you do. And so, yeah. But I mean, overall, it is better. It is better than last year. And the students that are able to park in the parking lot and buy the pass, they're all pretty content with the space that we have. I know a lot of them, their concern is, well, if we have all these students in the parking lot, then wouldn't that interfere with the kids dropping off their students in the morning and the limited parking space in the parking lot? And the parking lot is pretty big, and most times people choose to park at the back for some reason. I'm not sure they like that. So yeah, I mean, overall, it's looking nice.
Okay, so I wanted to tell you, too, the last month we did discuss, or a few weeks ago, we discussed possibly reducing that parking fee, and maybe we could look at it again at the next meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think you bring up some good points, and thank you again. That was an excellent report, and we look forward to having you. And anytime we have an agenda item, feel free to speak up if you have input for the agenda items as well as your report. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you and welcome. All right, next we have the Equality Committee report.
All right, good evening. We held our first...
Oh, I'm sorry. First, I hate to interrupt you, but first we need a motion to extend the time. Nora, do you want to?
I'd like to make a motion that we extend the time of the business meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. All right, thank you. Sorry, Tasha, go ahead, please.
All right. We held our first Equality Committee meeting on Monday, September 10th. We actually held our meeting at Merrill because they are doing some renovations at the Rotary Center, which is where we held our meetings at last year. And we have some members who have accessibility issues, so we needed to be on the first floor, but COLAC was not available either. So we moved our meeting to Merrill. This year, we will be sure to include the attendance that was requested by a board member, so you will now see that in our format. We did an introduction of Sheila Marshall, who is the new principal over at Merrill. We will have our membership list following our October meeting. We typically do not meet in September because we like the school year to get started. So after our October meeting, I will have that available. A good portion of our meeting was spent on the diversity, inclusion, and recruitment plan. As you all know, that's something that we have been working on for close to 3 years. So I just want to share some of the concerns of our great and dedicated committee about their concerns about the diversity, inclusion, and recruitment plan. We do not want the work of the committee to be lost. We need to know if the board continues to support this committee the same way that they support other committees. It feels as if the diversity plan is dead in the water. We would like to know what is the board responsibility to making sure this committee is clear on the expectations of the board. We also discussed our goals. However, we decided that we will wait to hear from the board before we determine what our goals will look like for a committee. We also mentioned the diversity certificate, which we are exploring with our partnership with Black Hawk Technical College. Any questions?
Ms. Guard?
Tasha, I know you've been on this committee for many years, and as I was looking through the report, I was struck by number 6, does the board support this committee the same way as other committees? Number 10, disappointed in board's lack of support. What is number 11? What is the board responsibility to make sure this committee is clear on their expectations? And then also just waiting for direction from the board. And part of the reason why those questions strike me is I think over the years there's been some changes. And I'm curious, was this created as a standing committee, as an ad hoc committee? Because maybe part of the reason why you're not getting clear direction, I am really not sure if this is a standing committee or an ad hoc committee. And if it's an ad hoc committee, I think ad hoc committees have specific goals. And in the past, I think we had, your committee had goals annually. So anyway, I have a number of questions, and it really feels bad. I feel bad to have so many people meet together, and it seems like the questions that they have, they're really looking for some direction from the board.
Correct.
And anyway, if you could fill in some gaps there.
So the Equality Committee was formed in 1981. It was formed as an ad hoc committee, and I actually have the original position paper that the committee created and presented to the board. Previously, prior to even my arrival in the district, the wonderful, great Barb Hickman would present to the board every single year the position paper and talk about the history and the importance of the of the Equality Committee and the rich history of such committee. I've been a member prior to becoming an employee within the district. The board would usually give a charge to the committee. That's how we set our goals of what we would do. And so that's where some of those questions, a lot of our members and even people in attendance remember when we had that type of support and what it looks like. So we began work on the plan because that was the will of the board. And then now to move ahead and not move forward with that is where some of those frustrations and those questions came from.
And I see Dr. Williams there in the wings. I know, I think the last couple of years, we also received a report that was kind of a strategic plan report, and I want to say what you were doing each quarter or each week, or throughout the school year, what the goal was, when you expected to have it as a timeline. And I don't see this here. I don't know, have all those goals been met, or is it because you're waiting for some direction from the board? And I guess as one board member, I just would like to know exactly what you would like us to do, and maybe we just need to step back and clarify what the committee needs and what we need to provide for direction. And that's just me speaking with these questions.
Thank you. No, the work, the chart that I usually present on every month, the work is not done. I don't think it ever be done. I think it's ongoing, and we appreciate that. But I think what we would like to see is the diversity and inclusion plan that we worked on so diligently at the board's request, and we made all the corrections, and that the board had asked. We are looking for approval of that plan.
Anyone else? I have a couple of questions or comments, but the plan that was developed was supposed to be developed in, Ms. Shope, maybe you can make sure I get this right, but in an equity committee or a diversity committee? We had an equity committee and a diversity committee that were working on the plan, correct?
No, there was the board had an ad hoc diversity committee.
Mm-hmm.
Many of those people are on the equity committee, equality committee as well. And so in some of those meetings, we met together.
So it seems like the plan got moved around, and that's just an observation. It's not, I mean, I'm just saying that's what I see, is that it wasn't really done in one committee, but it was moved and people were moved. And I think we're just unclear right now. Like a moment ago when you said that you would present us the membership. Well, I'm confused because ad hoc committees are supposed to have membership approved by the board, and we don't know. Right now, it just seems like everything's very loose. We're not sure who's considered a member. We're just very confused about the Equality Committee, and we want to get everything straightened out as well. When I saw your concerns written here, I thought, well, we share those concerns. There should be a charge of given to the committee, and there should be approved membership. Of course, you do the public meetings and the minutes. So it's something I've been asking for a couple of months now, and we'll have to get to it real soon, is just an overview of all of our ad hoc committees.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is an ad hoc committee, but I think everyone agrees, it's run in a way that's not run like other ad hoc committees are. So when you say, is the board treating this one the same? Not really, it's different, because it just kind of goes since 1980, what did you say? 81. Ad hoc committees typically are formed, given a charge, and when the charge is completed, the committee is dissolved. So this one is definitely different. So we need to talk about ad hoc committees, about how to manage this one as opposed to other ones, or will they all be the same? But there definitely needs to be a conversation. There needs to be clear understanding of the board's charge to the committee, and then you have to have clear goals set so that you know what you want to accomplish in your committee. And I want to say that the plan that was developed has not, how did you call it here? It's not being shoved aside. We plan to incorporate that. Like you said, Dr. Williams, the things on that list you go through every month, it's never ending. Well, one of the other board members told me, equity should be a part of everything, and I agree. So if it's going to be a part of everything, why have a separate plan? And I read in the minutes that, yeah, you do have facilities plans, and you do have other plans that are separate from the strategic plan, but facilities planning is not part of everything. Equity should be part of everything we do. It should be part of the facilities, part of the classroom, part of the instruction, part of everything we do, hiring, everything. So that's why our superintendent wanted to incorporate that into our strategic plan, make it something that is just part of what we do rather than a separate document. Because I think he had a very good point. When you have two documents, so some people are looking at this one and some people are looking at this one. But rarely do it's like if you're focusing on two different things, how can you bring them together unless they're brought together? So I don't think it's a bad idea to bring the two plans together. It's going to take some work, and my understanding is that's going to be happening, so it's not overlooked.
Well, I think it's important to note that this perceived lack of clarity, and I think that's exactly what it is. I think it's a perception, and then one person said they think it's smoke and mirrors. The committee was very clear, the board was very clear in its charge to the committee to develop such a plan. We brought the plan back to the committee. It was approved by what was then the Policy and Personnel Committee, which should have been submitted to the full board at that point in time. And then there was some additional meetings that were held where we made the adjustments that you had asked. And at that point in time, we brought the plan back to the board. And so at this point in time, it was delayed several times, month after month. And so all of the tasks that we were asked to do, all of the concerns that were expressed by board members at that time were addressed. We came at the last couple of meetings and asked if there were any other comments or concerns that need to be addressed. And so at this point in time, we the committee is very concerned that the plan is not approved, which Ms. Bell has discussed some of the concerns that were brought up. And the thing about it is some of those concerns are not only brought up by the people in the committee, but brought up by people in the community as well. As to our commitment, we say diversity, it's in our mission statement. The plan that you have is embedded throughout our strategic plan. It's not uncommon for diversity include a district to have a diversity and inclusion plan, just like a technology plan, just like a professional development plan. That's also a part of the strategic plan, but they also have an additional document. So this is very consistent with other districts around the nation. And if you even take a look at Madison, Milwaukee, Janesville, it's very consistent.
But what you see the difference is when you have a technology plan or facilities plan, the details of those plans don't go into the strategic plan. So when I look at the diversity plan or the diversity inclusion plan that came to us, I see things that could easily be put right into that strategic plan and become part of everything we do every day. And that strategic plan, has to do with the finances, the students, the staff, infrastructure, everything. So to instill the equity plan and the concept of equity and actually put that into action in the strategic plan makes sense to me. And it was our superintendent's idea, but I think it's a good idea. And I wonder if the work begins in that direction, if then maybe it will be understood that we're not shoving it aside. I hope so.
So would it be the wish of the board to copy and paste components of the...
Not copy and paste. I think that would look like someone copy and pasted it. But I do think that there could be a work group brought together, and I leave that up to the superintendent to decide that. But a group would have to get together and actually blend the two. And some of it's going to be duplicates, so you won't need to put it in there. Like you say, there is a lot of it in there already. But every page won't have to be put into our strategic plan, but the ideas and the actions can be where they're not already. And I mean, that's what we're waiting to see. And I mean, right now, that's where the board is at, that we've heard from the superintendent that that's the plan. So we're waiting for that now to happen, and I'm sure that's going to be in the near future that it would be beginning. Mr. Wilson, did you have?
So I think that you made some really interesting points with the phrase of the concept of equity and being embedded, within the strategic plan. While I agree that the concept of equity should be and can be embedded, within the strategic plan, I also think that because the precedent is set that we do have separate plans, which the equity team alluded to, the technology plan or even the strategic communication plan that we'll be talking about at the committee level. I think that says a lot about our district to have those those characteristics embedded in our strategic plan, but being a member, and like Ms. Bell said, even before I was a school board member or a district employee, knowing the importance of the work that goes on at the Equality Committee meetings, knowing that there are district staff, community members that are really involved in that work, that have been involved in that plan. A lot of these concerns are theirs, and they are shared concerns by not just myself, but other members of the Equality Committee. I think that we, as a board, need to again take a step back and realize that there's still inequity going on within our district, specifically with this committee, and that it's not the work of the Equality Committee that was said in the position paper in 1981. If we read that paper here today, you wouldn't know that we were in 2018. So I've got the position paper that I'm willing to share with all the board members. And again, if you can read that position paper and not be baffled and dumbfounded that we're still dealing with the majority of the things that were written in 1981, money back guarantee.
Dr. Childs was waiting, and then you'd be next.
I was just going to comment that I had several weeks ago asked the cabinet to work with me on working on integrating the diversity plan into the strategic plan and presenting at least some conceptual ways that some of that can be done. And we'd like to just go right ahead and work on that. And that doesn't mean that there is no room for an adoption of the diversity plan. I want to be clear about that, but I think the elements of it need, and I absolutely agree with, though I don't know anything about Beloit in 1981, I agree with what Mr. Wilson just said. I think we still have issues, and we need to be about the business of addressing them for our students. I think that's a way to do it so that we have a singularity of focus.
Thank you.
I wasn't here through all this, but what I'm sensing is that the committee's done a lot of work, and they feel the work has not been recognized. And my suggestion would be that we include them in the discussions as we develop that strategic plan, what's going to go into it, and take the input that they put together and make them part of the process, because it really seems to me that, yeah, I understand we don't want two different plans, but we seem to be at odds here, and we should be including you in the discussion as to, and coming to an agreement as to what that strategic plan should look like, because there was a lot of work put into it. I mean, I wasn't there, but I know you've had some things over the last, I think, 3 years now it's been about. So I think it's only fair to the committee that they started out with a board charge. I wasn't on the board, but it sounds like the board did issue a charge for them to develop it and to turn our backs on that. I think that's what you're feeling, is we're turning our backs on you, and that's not the intent. And I think we've got to include this committee into our process.
And that's an additional concern, because this group was a part of the strategic plan that we have now, and the suggestions were embedded within the strategic plan, which is even more concerning as to how it's being said that it's not a part of the strategic plan when those items were a part. And so that just adds to the even greater concern that's been expressed by people who are some people who are part of all three and been around a very long time and so forth.
Ms. Card?
I know there has been a lot of work done on that plan. I've read it a couple of times. I wasn't on the board when they looked at it the second time, or recently. But part of the reason, I'm kind of going back to part of the reason why I brought up what I brought up before with you, Tasha, is I kind of think that this equality committee should either become a standing committee instead of an ad hoc committee, because by going by the title ad hoc committee, there are different guidelines for an ad hoc committee rather than a standing committee. And the work could be the same, but I'm concerned it doesn't kind of fall into some of where our policies are. Not to take away from what you do, but to get it in line with what our policy says about standing board committees and ad hoc committees. Not to disband it, please. I'm not thinking that. I'm just, let's get it in line for where we are.
Mr. Larson.
I would like the Equality Committee to be part of what we discuss in our board workshops as far as the committees, because the way things are kind of running right now is that the committees are meeting, and then the Equality Committee may be meeting to talk about things on the agenda, but the committees or the board has already made a decision before we get the minutes. And so for that equality piece to really be working and be effective, it needs to be part of that decision making. So whether we have equality representatives on the standing committees, or we pull the equality committee as a sixth standing committee and a sixth pillar of our strategic plan, I would really like to see how the equality committee comes together, because I feel like we get their ideas and thoughts after a decision's been made or something's already happened.
I've noticed the same thing, that it's, instead of bringing us suggestions, it's a reaction to things that we've already decided, and that's not good for any of us. And so I think it causes a lot of hard feelings with members of the Equality Committee. And I don't know if we need a sixth standing committee, but there could be a charge broad enough. I mean, there's no rule that says an ad hoc committee can only last so long. There's no rule. It just says when your job is done, the committee is disbanded. So if there's a charge broad enough, it can be a committee that continues, but there would have to be communication between the committee and the board, better communication and goal setting, like you say. And better communication about what we would like to see the focus be, and then you setting goals, and just, instead of reacting, bringing us things. So, I mean, maybe we want to look at a sixth committee, but that's a lot. But an ad hoc committee doesn't have to be dissolved after 20 years. Just has to have a broad enough focus that you can keep going. And I think promoting equity in our district is something that always needs to be done. And if that's your charge, it's not going to end.
Yeah, I would just like to. Over the past 3 years, whenever I would come here each month and I present the equity report, and I always highlight the concerns of the ad hoc committee, of the ad hoc diversity committee. I also talk about the work and recommendations that they made and how the efforts that we've made through the district connects with that. And I will continue to do that. Now, we all know that whenever it starts to talk about, or we start to have conversations around racial issues and diversity and equity, those are tough conversations that are very challenging for some people to have. But it is the work that we must do. Diverse is who we are, but the inclusion piece is where we seem to be struggling. And so that's what that plan that's embedded within our strategic plan, where we talk about in our own mission statement, diversity. We say diversity like it's a punchline and it's a buzzword, but do we really believe in it and practice in it? I can just imagine how people who came long before us. I remember, Mr. Wong, when you did your acceptance speech, you talked about when your grandparents came here to Beloit. That was touching for me, because I can just imagine what she probably had to go through way back when, and some other people when they were trying to integrate this city. 1981, Equality Committee. It's 2018. These are difficult conversations. We must have them. We should have a plan in place. We will work with Dr. Charles. He's the interim superintendent here. We will follow his guidance on that piece, and we'll move forward from there, and we'll bring that plan back to the board.
Thank you. And then real soon, we will have the talk about the committee as well, the structure, and moving forward with the Equality Committee and all of our ad hoc committees. Oh, Ms. Sanchez. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I guess I'm just a little confused having come on not too long ago. But my understanding was that the Equality Committee served to create this diversity and inclusion plan. Well,
No.
That's how it's been,
No.
I guess, seen in my vision since I came on. Never had real thorough explanation. So I guess I'm a little confused right now.
The diversity and inclusion plan that was formed by the ad hoc committees. Some of the people on the ad hoc committee are also part of the Equality Committee. Since the Equality Committee, we report here every month, we do the presentation there. But to avoid that confusion, there have been several times where Mr. Ralph Berkeley and others have come here to the board as part of the ad hoc committee and expressed their concerns. Since the ad hoc committee doesn't report here every month, we report the concerns and the plan each month
So
under the Equality Committee report, since that's the item that's on the agenda.
Okay, so it's the ad hoc committee and the Equality Committee working in conjunction with each other to create this plan? Is that what you're saying?
The ad hoc committee, the ad hoc diversity committee was formed by the board prior to my arrival here, and there was a plan that was in place. Some of those people are also a part of the Equality Committee. 'Cause, you know, people serve on more than one committee.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then that diversity and inclusion plan came about between these two committees, or the ad hoc committee is the one that developed this plan? The diversity and inclusion plan. So there's a diversity and inclusion plan, correct?
Yes.
That's been developed?
Yes.
It's been developed by which committee?
Developed by the ad hoc committee.
And the Equality Committee? Is that correct? Okay, I'm just trying to get in line who developed this, and
With guidance from the board, because there were also board members who sat on those, who was a part of the development of this plan as well.
Okay. And then we have our strategic plan, but we also have the diversity and inclusion plan.
The
correct?
diversity and inclusion plan is embedded within the strategic plan. It's not separate from
So it's within.
separate from our district strategic plan.
Okay. And that's what we're saying, that we want it to be embedded, correct? So it is currently embedded, or we're trying to embed it?
It's currently embedded.
Okay. Okay.
I think that's going to be something that the superintendent, Dr. Childs, goes through with his cabinet
Okay.
to determine.
Okay.
Looking at each item and seeing, is it really in there, and if not, how can we?
Yeah, when you listen to it, it almost sounds like it's two different plans, but if it's embedded
It
in the same
is.
plan,
That's what they're trying to do, is bring them together.
to bring it to that. Okay.
Well, thank you both.
Thank you.
Very much. Appreciate your time and the presentation. Okay, next are committee reports, and we'll start with Fiscal Committee. Nora Gard, please.
The Fiscal Committee met on September 10th, and I would like to just recognize who those committee members are. We have Tori Champagny, myself as chair, John Melizio, Wendy Sanchez, vice chair, and then we have Sepulveda, I think is how you say his name. So what is it? Okay, thank you. And then also Bob Larson is Tom is our liaison on that committee. In the committee meeting, we appointed Kyle Larson as our TIF representative, and we reviewed purchase orders between $15,000 and $25,000. We also talked about supporting a contract extension for TC Networks so that we would have a better opportunity for putting forth a future RFP in bidding. And then we had an update of the 2018 funds 10 and 27 expense budget. I had the committee look at some reports that we had in the previous board meeting, some financial reports, so we could go over a little bit of what the definitions are and where the money goes and comes from. So we had a little bit of a discussion about that. Also, we discussed a little bit about the health insurance rates for 2018-19. And one exciting piece of information that Mr. Tom brought forward was the use of Fund 80, which is a community service fund, and to maybe look into how we might be able to use that fund because it could help us to level our tax level for our taxpayers. So we're going to do a little more research into that. We also talked about waiver of rental fees and our future agenda items, our fiscal reports. I should point out that I believe it's October 23rd that we're going to be looking over and approving the 2018-2019 budget. And some of the whole budget is, a good portion of that budget is dependent on what our student count is for state aid. But Bob and his department have been working diligently and feels pretty comfortable about the budget that will be presented to the public then. So that's my report.
Thank you. And now will be Infrastructure Committee. Ms. Sanchez.
The Infrastructure Committee met on September 6th. We met at Hackett Elementary School. We did swear in a new member, Melody Wargo. We did have quite a few things we discussed. We did talk about security cameras and bringing to the board a possible request to have an RFP sent out for security camera upgrades. We did also speak about replacing the Beloit Memorial High School fire panel. And possibly having an RFP brought forward for that, just trying to be proactive as it was during the Simplex check over the summer, it was noted that the panel is beyond its life expectancy, so parts would probably be difficult to replace that if something was to occur. So just trying to be proactive on things that may be coming up. Information on the Aldridge classroom remodel and how successful that was and how impressed Sean was with that work. The salt shed update, Sean had presented that he had been in speakings with Angus Young and the state and getting a contact person to obtain salt from the state or through where the state gets their salt from. There was a Beloit Memorial High School cafeteria update, and that should be completed in the next couple of weeks, so it's almost done. And our future meeting will be October 4th at 5 o'clock at Beloit Memorial High School in the cafeteria. And we also did have a tour of Hackett, which was very impressive. Just like the principal at Hackett said today, that the kids were so excited to come back to those new classrooms that had been remodeled, that they were very nice.
Thank you, Ms. Sanchez. And now, Staff Committee, Mr. Larson, please.
So the staff committee met on September 11th here at COLAC. We discussed the PBS climate survey. Mrs. Pells and Mrs. Papke provided the information from the PBS climate survey, which some of the principals referenced in their SIPs. I was listening for it. So we had a discussion about how that data is used, how to make it more beneficial for principals, the district, and as a climate survey, and kind of get a pulse about how teachers are feeling in the district. Jeff had suggested that the data is aggregated by school and quantifying those sometimes often. Tracy provided a staffing update. So we had 202 open positions. 179 had been filled at that time, leaving 23 positions remaining open with both certified and support staff. And she also reported that the department was going to be going to a job fair looking for substitute teachers as well as coaching positions that still need to be filled. She also presented an evaluation update. So throughout the year, we'll get updates regarding the number of professional educators who are on cycle that year, what that process looks like, and just kind of monitoring along the way. And that a lot of the evaluations will be housed in the Frontline My Learning Plan, which was also referenced earlier tonight in the presentation. We had on the agenda third-party climate survey and exit interviews, but due to time, we tabled that till our next meeting. I had asked for the professional development survey, but Mr. Bonds beat me to the punch. We will be meeting again October 9th at 5 p.m., but I also invited the committee members to attend our board workshop tomorrow for Robert's Rules at 5 p.m., followed by the school funding workshop at 6. So if anyone's interested in tuning in or attending, that'd be great. And our next meeting will be October 9th.
And now, Students Committee, Mr. Wong, please.
Our committee met on Tuesday, I think it was Tuesday, September 18th at 4 p.m. in room 106. The items of discussion, the first one was actually, it was after the meeting. I asked Mr. Wilson if he would be willing to serve as a liaison with the Equality Committee, and he so kindly agreed to that, so thank you. The Advanced Learners Committee liaison, we were told that this committee has not been meeting or has not been active for the last 3 years, so we're not going to have a liaison for that. The cell phone policy was brought, and this is the second time it had been brought to our committee, with the idea that it would be completed and...
Excuse us, I'm sorry. It's for Lakaya.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Passing notes here. The cell phone policy was updated, and it was actually brought to the special meeting tonight for approval of the first reading. So we'll see that coming through, and let you know, Ms. Jackson, that the information on that doesn't have anything specific to yonder pouches. So we were fully aware of that, and we're willing to make changes as time goes on. But so far, a little word on that. I did hear from one teacher at the high school, and he said he was skeptical of the yonder pouches at the beginning of the year, and he made the comment to me. He said it's been amazing. He said he never would have thought the engagement in the classrooms is what it is today. So those are very positive, and I'm guessing there's some that are maybe not so positive. Also, we had a discussion of the formation of the ad hoc committee for student code of conduct and student discipline, and that actually will be discussed here shortly, I believe, as well. And the last item that was discussed was the awarding of academic credit for the academic labs at the high school. This was brought up. We actually had a lively discussion on this, and I think that we realized that this needs a little more work before we can bring it to the board for approval. And I certainly appreciate Heidi Andre and her comments that she made. I thought it was very well received. And it's great to have the staff members on these committees, because I certainly don't understand everything that's going on in all the buildings, and it's nice to have the representation. So thank you, Heidi, for that, if you're out there listening, and also the other staff members that are on the various committees that help out, because your voices are needed. So thank you. Our next meeting, other future topics we are going to discuss. One is going to be student parking at the high school, along with the PBIS student survey that was run along the side with the staff survey. Our next meeting will be the 8th is it the 8th? 14th. Actually, Tuesday the 9th at 4 p.m.
Okay,
Good.
thank you. And I think there was no communication meeting this time, right, to report on? Okay. And I just want to say that, John, I want to echo what you just said, that it is wonderful that the staff and the community members have stepped up to serve in these roles. The information we get, the input we get, we couldn't make these decisions, I don't think, as well. I know we couldn't make them as well without them. And so I thank them for all serving. And we do have openings. Anyone out there who's interested in serving on a committee, I think we may have openings on every committee. If not, we have them on many of them. So I do invite any staff or community members who would like to have a voice and help us in our decision-making process to join us. And then, Ms. Guard, you had a question?
Yes, I just had a question for John regarding the minutes for your committee. Under the Code of Conduct ad hoc committee formation, I wondered in here it says that you had a recommended list for the ad hoc committee. Do you have actual names, or do you have a makeup, a compilation of who should be on that membership, or who should be on that ad hoc committee? So that's question number one. I have two others, but go ahead.
Yes, we do have a list with names. There are openings on that, and we are looking to fill it. We kept that open, and actually will be discussed here shortly.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know for that. Also in that paragraph for your minutes, I wondered, it looks like you want representatives from both east side and west side, but the way your minutes are written, it almost looks like you have an east side, it says, well, you would like, or the committee would like to see parents from the west side of town, and then the work will begin. And the sentence before that, it references the east side, and I'm thinking you want east and west. So that was something that I thought maybe should be put together before we approve these. And you've already answered my third question. Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda. Is there any other questions? Or okay, all right. Next item on the agenda is approval of the consent list, which would mean approving items 9A through I and 10A all together. If I could have a motion for that, please.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, the motion is made and seconded to approve the consent list. Is there any discussion about any of these items? Ms. Guard?
I wasn't at all of the meetings, so I just
You can
wanted to
abstain if you like.
That's what I
Okay.
wanted to.
All right, all in favor of the consent? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Larson.
I noticed that on the minutes for the special board meeting for July 27th, when we were interviewing the candidates for the appointments, I believe one of the last names of the candidates is wrong. It says Ann Jeanette Cherie, and her last name is Sherrod, correct? Okay.
So we'll make that one correction.
In addition, it says Taurus Champney, and it's Tori Champney.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thank you for catching those. All in favor of approval of the consent list? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, consent, one abstention. Consent list passes with Guard abstaining. Business action items. Item 10B, the 2018-19 proposed budget overview. Mr. Tom, thank you.
Okay. Do we have it for the screen, or are we just doing paper at this point?
On screen, yes.
It's not your PowerPoint, right? Is it yours? No, it would just be from the board packet, from the website. Okay. So you're saying that's it?
How about you start
Okay. All right. Well, Mr. Bonds will look for that on the website. I believe everybody has a paper copy though as well, so we can just work off of that. So what I'm looking at here is the recommended format for budget adoption. There's actually two different documents in here that are basically the same thing, but there's the format for budget adoption, and then the second half is the format for publication. So the publication's a little shorter, which saves you a little money on printing it in the paper, but basically it's the same thing. So so the good news is right now we are proposing a balanced budget for next year, and so we've come up with estimated revenue for the general fund will be $89,647,000, and then we will have our estimated expenses will equal the same amount, so revenues will equal expenses, and we will have a balanced budget. Things to remember at this point, though, we don't know our pupil count, and a big chunk of that is also going to be the open enrollment numbers, which are going to impact the budget. Could be good, could be bad. Hopefully it will be good. We won't know our state aid amount until October 15th, and we won't know our equalized value until October 1st. So those are the two items that are going to drive the mill rate and the tax levy. Once one way or another, we're going to get X amount of dollars, but we don't know how much is going to be state aid and how much is going to be taxes at this point. So we have an estimate in here. We should be pretty close, but you never know until those final numbers come through. I have been told by one of the bond agencies they think the equalized value is actually going to go up pretty sharply. They're projecting a 7% increase in equalized value for the school district. In this estimate, we only use 2%. So if it goes up 7%, your tax rate actually goes down, which is better in that regard. So as far as, I don't know if we really have a lot of big highlights. One thing to note is that the overall budget is up. We go from somewhere here, I believe it was, $109 million was the total budget for all funds last year, and this year it's at $120 million. And the big changes are that you're spending about $3 million more on the energy exemption projects this year. And then also the Welcome Center is going to be an additional $5.5 million in this year's budget. So between the two, you're spending an additional $8.5 million. It's all planned for, and we knew about it, but you see the overall budget seems to jump up, and that's the biggest reasons why you see that. So right now we're projecting last year's mill rate was $11.54 per thousand, and if all this were to hold true, the mill rate would be $11.77 this year, so an increase of 23 cents on the mill rate, or on a $100,000 home, $23 tax increase. But I'm thinking that if that equalized value goes up or state aid is higher than we projected, then the rate will actually be lower than last year. So it's more to come at this point. We just kind of had strange timing this year that we need to publish this budget 15 days prior to when you adopt the final budget, but the next board meeting is 14 days prior to when we're going to actually adopt it. So we actually need to approve it now, and then we're going to have a whole bunch of new numbers for you on the 23rd, and you'll be able to get the final picture then. So at this point, I think I'll just open it up for questions, and we'll go from there.
Can I ask, are you assuming the pupil count will stay about the same, or are you projecting it's going to go down or up, or just assuming it's the same?
We projected a decrease of about 50 students is what's built into the budget. So
Okay. And then the Welcome Center, I know it costs 5.5, but didn't we borrow the money, and isn't it paid back over so many years? So do we still say we're spending the 5.5 million this year?
yeah, all the expenses, you had some expenses last year. It was about $350,000, which I assume was maybe like the design costs and maybe started some of the breaking the ground. But then this year you'll see all the expenses in the budget, because last year you would have gotten $5.5 million of revenue when you issued the bonds.
I see.
This year you're going to have all the expenses now that you're building it.
Okay. So then we pay it back over how many years?
I'm not sure how long you took that bond out
Okay.
for. I have to look. Yeah.
So the revenue was last year The cost is this year and the payback is over probably 20 years, according to Dr.
Yeah.
Childs. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Wong?
I'm curious to know, is there any, and I'm not sure why, this is all new finance to me, so after 2 months I'm trying to pick up speed fast here, but it's sometimes not working. I'm looking at the numbers here, and I'm kind of curious, is there a way to figure out, how much money we actually are paying in school choice for students? And I'm assuming that's an ongoing payment that we make, so if we have a student that lives in the district and they continue to go to Turner or some other district, that we continue each year to continue to pay that. Mm-hmm. Is there a number that we have within our budget that we can point to say, yeah, this is the number?
Yeah. I'm not sure if this format breaks it down that far, but look.
And I didn't know if that was the other school districts within Wisconsin, the payment for services.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, that's the wrong fund. Let's see if we can find it here.
And that's okay. We can, if you can provide that, it's a later.
It is broken out. It does have its own line item. In this format, it's not really spelled out real clear as to which one it is. But yeah, I can definitely get you that number and show you. We've been working on a history. I was looking at, so we could project. I was looking at how many have gone out in the last 3 years and what grades are they all in. So we could certainly put together something of here's how much it has cost us each year for the last 5 years, or
also what the number of students that are school choicing in as well. So I mean, obviously there's an offset there. There's also some other figures. I always look for outliers that, to me, the numbers just look kind of odd. And I don't want to get into a lot of committee work here, but it's just like one number that I was looking at here was other revenues, and it's on the first page from state sources. I mean, it went from 1.8 million up to 4.7 million is projected this year. I mean, that just seems so, and I don't know what that is. And then I was also looking at business administration, the expenditures on that, going up from 12.8 million to 17 million over a 2-year cycle. And I don't know, I guess maybe that's for another committee or a workshop.
Oh, no, that's fine. That one that's the cost of the building. So that's the building, the Welcome Center happens in that line item. So that's where you see that one. And the other state aid prior to that is the per pupil aid amount that in the past they used to increase the revenue limit. They would say everybody gets $200 per student, and they stopped doing that a couple of years ago, and now the state budget gives you a dollar amount per student every year in that new aid line. And this year they're giving us $654 per student. And I think last year it was around $300 per student. So it took quite a big jump in that aid amount. What they've done is they no longer let you increase your revenue limit. It's kind of a little thing they're doing to prevent districts from raising their taxes. So the state has said, you can't raise your revenue limit anymore, but we're going to give you more state aid in this other line, which basically washes out. So that's the way they're doing it.
Is this some stuff that we're going to cover tomorrow?
Some of it, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, he's giving us details that the man tomorrow won't have. Yeah, we just have general. I do have one question that maybe is better to wait for tomorrow, but I'll try it now. And plus, I want to make it clear for the people that are watching this that if the values of our homes and our businesses increase, our property values increase, the mill rate naturally goes down.
Correct.
So it's basically the same. Your taxes aren't going down, just the mill rate's going down. So, I mean, it's good to see our property values going up in Beloit, but at what point does the state say you're going to get less aid because you have more property value now?
Yeah, it will have an impact if we do go up 7%. It could drive down the amount of state aid you get next year. So it always has a 1-year lag. But the only thing would be you don't know if your values go up 7%, maybe they go up 8% statewide. So then they say, well, Beloit lagged, so now your aid goes up. So the thing is, you're dependent on the whole state, and you're dependent on what happens in the other 425 school districts. So it's always
Yeah. So our property taxes will stay about the same if values go up, mill rates go down. But once the state, and if the state says you now get less funding, our property taxes will go up.
right.
Okay.
Yep. Now, one thing to keep in mind, though, next year there's no longer this energy exemption. So this year you're levying $5.8 million for that energy exemption, which is a really big amount compared to the actual general fund tax levy. Next year that goes away. So the tax levy next year could be much lower, depending on what the board decides to do with other programs and things like that. So.
Okay. Are there any other questions? More tomorrow. Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Next on the agenda is,
Bob, do you need approval on the preliminary?
no,
Okay. I'm sorry.
that's no problem. Is there a question? Okay. Next is item 10C, the superintendent evaluation, discussion, and action, possible action. So this was something that I brought forward after a discussion with Dr. Childs. He and I talked about beginning an evaluation process. And I know he's most likely here for only a year, but the evaluation process is a communication tool and is a way to have us be a much higher functioning unit, board and administrator. It's a way for us to set goals together, to have clear lines of communication, clear expectations, and accountability. So I asked Dr. Childs if he would be able to maybe present us at the next meeting with some evaluation tools that he'd be comfortable with. I also spoke to WASB, and they said there are no real different tools for an interim. They said you would just do whatever evaluation tool you think is appropriate. And so I would like to move that we move forward with this process. I'd like to entertain a motion, actually, that we move forward with the evaluation process and begin discussing evaluation tools and timelines and so forth.
I'll make the motion to move forward with the superintendent evaluation process, looking at tools and a timeline.
Is there a second? Okay, so we have a motion and a second to begin discussions on evaluation tools, evaluation process, and timeline. Is there any more discussion right now? Mr. Klett?
Are you talking about only for Dr. Childs, or are you talking about the future superintendent that comes in next year as an evaluation tool as well? So
That would be
there's two issues here.
something, yeah, we could use a different one at that time. It's something you agree upon together with the superintendent. So it might be the same one we use next year, it might change.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, all in favor? Aye? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so we will move forward with the evaluation process for the superintendent. Okay, there's a item for a security camera bid. And Mr. Winters, is he still here? Okay. Ms. Sanchez, would you like to say anything about that?
And this is what I spoke to in our review of the committee meeting. But Dr. Winters had brought this forward, indicating that there is a need for digital cameras and for the schools that have dark spots or no interior cameras. And this is something that out of our committee was going to come to the full board as an action item for approval of RFP, for an RFP to come forward. And the monies would be from Department of Justice grant, so it wouldn't be district It wouldn't be coming out of his fund. Yeah.
And,
So-
and just because I get lots of phone calls about, are you getting that grant money? Ms. Pels, this is some of that state grant money for Safe Schools, correct? Or is it different? Safety grant, okay, good. So, this is what
So-
we have decided to do with it, or at least part of it, right?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Larson.
And then I would just add that Sean also indicated that this would get us almost there, that we would still need a few cameras here and there in the future, but this would get us most of the way there.
Okay, would someone like to, Ms. Gard?
The RFP bidding process, was TC Network the only one that an RFP went to?
I don't know that it was, however, because it is technology, it's exempted from the bid process by the state law.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll move that the Board of Education recommend the award for the camera upgrade RFP to TC Networks in the amount of $158,772.19.
Is there okay, Mr. Klett seconded. So the motion to award TC Networks for the camera upgrade at the cost of $158,772.19 out of grant funds has been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. The next item on the agenda is the replacement of the BMHS fire panel to move forward with an RFP for the fire panel. I think that was covered in the report from Ms. Sanchez. Does anyone, well, let's start with a motion. Is there a motion?
I'll move that the Board of Education recommend, or let me start over.
Rephrase.
I move that the Board of Education moves forward with an RFP process to replace the fire panel at Beloit Memorial High School.
Okay, is there a second? All right, so there's a motion and a second to move forward with the RFP process to replace the fire panel at Beloit Memorial High School. Ms. Gard?
I'm sorry to talk so much here, but I'm just curious. The fire panel was just inspected by Simplex, and then we're going to send out an RFP to, what, 3 companies? And I guess my concern is the company that is chosen to do the inspection has an advantage, I believe, in putting forth an RFP over another company that maybe hasn't done an inspection. So my question is, how many companies and how are they chosen for the RFPs, maybe?
That's a good question, because I see what you're saying. They know everything that has to be done. They have more information. I don't know if they're even included or if they're planning to bid on it, but I guess we could let Dr. Childs know that that's a concern.
There are probably only, well, that I know of, fewer than 6 companies that actually do this sort of thing. So probably, if not all, most of them are going to receive the RFP, and we'll look at the proposals. The thing for the board to remember is that you're not obligated, if there are good reasons not to accept the low bid. So if somebody comes in with a slightly higher bid than the low bid, but there's good reason for that bid to have been superior in terms of what it's going to do for us, you can go with that. There's nothing that compels you to have to go with the low bidder. So even if Simplex, is that who was doing the inspections, comes in with a lower bid because they know the system better, you're not obligated to take that bid.
Do we really care? Do we really care if Simplex can do quality work in the lowest bid just because they inspected it? We don't want to do business with them?
That's up to the board to decide. My answer to that would be no, we shouldn't, but that's a board decision.
Part of the reason why I brought that up is there is a local company that has wanted to be included in the RFP for examining, not necessarily this one, but there have been other RFPs that have gone out, and other companies have had the opportunity to inspect what it is that there's going to be an RFP put forward on, and they're always at a disadvantage because the one who does the on-site visit knows how to order in bulk maybe the inventory to do the job, so they come by with a lower bid. And the point of this local business said, all I really want to do is be included for the opportunity to do a site visit so that when I do my RFP, it's on equal ground. And their point is it's usually gone to whatever I don't have any details, but whatever RFP in the past has been approved has gone to outside local companies. And so that's the reason why I brought it up.
Thank you.
Pam, just the board is supposed to give priority to local vendors whenever possible. So if the bid's close, the board is supposed to give consideration to that local provider, which is something we should always take into consideration. But if the dollars are significant, then that's where the local provider doesn't come in. And if you're going to go about by that, Nora, are you going to let everybody come in and do an inspection before you send a bid out? I mean, we've got to start somewhere. So if Simplex did, I don't even know if they're going to bid on the project. They just did the inspection. So, but local always has priority whenever possible.
Well, Mr. Wong.
Just a question on that. What's the difference? I mean, what % difference does it have to be before it's going to be staying local?
That's up to the board to decide that. There's no, at least unless the rules changed from when I was on the board, there's no written rule. It just says we give precedent, we give priority to local whenever possible.
So I think we should just let this, assume it's going to be handled by administration and come to us and we'll find out how it went. Okay. Lost track. Did we? Motion made and seconded. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so the motion to go forward with an RFP to replace the fire panel at Blackmore High School passes. Now we have the approval of the ad hoc student discipline and governance membership committee, ad hoc committee, and this is the ad hoc committee that's going to be reviewing, making recommended, if any, changes to the code of conduct and discussing overall student governance. Let's see. Dr. Childs, would you like to?
Yeah. The committee approved the people that you see there. It's an incomplete list. We will be coming back with more committee members simply because I did not get all the responses. And matter of fact, I got 2 yesterday. So we will be filling this out. We'll have some high school representation to be sure, and we'll have parent representation from the west side.
Okay, thank you. And I have one concern is, okay, we're approving these members, but no meeting will take place until we have a full committee, right? So they're all on the same page.
Right.
Okay. I would hope that our high school principal could be part of this. Also, our hearing officer, Lori Medina, resource officers, social workers. I think those are people that are missing. And of course, I know you have more parents that you'll be adding. And are they not just east and west parents, but are they different grade levels as well? High school.
There are primary, intermediate, and I asked for high school and haven't received them yet. There are principals at each level.
Okay.
There is diversity among them because I asked for African American, Hispanic, and Caucasian parents from each area. And we have those very well represented. So we have some more to place, and we'll be getting to that, and as soon as we have them, we're going to move ahead with an organizational meeting. It's going to be a very large group, and they're going to have to work in subcommittees, but that's okay because we've got primary, intermediate, and secondary levels to deal with, and they can work in those subcommittees on these things. So,
I'm assuming Ms. Pels is going to be,
yes, absolutely.
because your name's not on here either.
She actually,
right?
no, she was actually the first person I asked.
Okay, so we're missing a name. Could we
So,
add her to this right
You
now?
can, yeah, I didn't think you'd need to add administrative personnel, but if you want to add her, you can go ahead and add her.
Is there anyone else
Absolutely.
you had in mind that's administrative?
Not at this point in time.
Okay.
We may add additional people later.
All right. So is there a motion to approve these people so far for the ad hoc committee for student governance and code of conduct?
I guess just one thing, I mean, I would tend to agree with what you had to say, Pam, in regards to the resource officers and having them involved in that, and that wasn't something that was not included. I don't know if perhaps a friendly amendment be added to this? Or would we, or would the verbiage in here that basically says we're going to expand it to additional teachers in high school, teachers and parents, I mean, that doesn't include resource officers as well.
We can
You
include
can
them.
just say staff. But Lori Medina is not staff, actually. But
No, she is not.
Could we just change the motion to approve the initial membership?
Yes.
So then it doesn't sound like this is the final list, but there's still going to be more added to it?
Right.
Yeah. I think that would be fine. Okay, so, Mr. Larson, would you like to make a motion?
Absolutely. I move that the Board of Education approves the initial membership for the Ad Hoc Student Discipline and Governance Committee.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second to approve the membership for the ad hoc, how did you word it again? The initial membership for the Ad Hoc Student Discipline and Governance Committee as presented in our packet with the addition of Emily Pels to the list. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so the initial members of the ad hoc committee are approved. Now our next agenda item is policy 345.6, Rule 1, specific graduation requirements for a second reading. And this is Mr. Bonds presenting this. Would you like to say anything about this policy? Graduation requirements. Yeah. Okay. Does anyone have any questions regarding the policy? Okay, a motion?
I move that we approve the revisions of policy 345.6 Rule 1, specific graduation requirements for final reading.
Okay, is there a second, please?
I'll second.
All right, there's a motion and a second to approve policy 345.6 Rule 1, specific graduation requirements for final reading as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Policy 345.6 Rule 1 passes. We've removed policy, let's see. Oh no, infrastructure is next, right?
Madam
Policy.
President,
Pardon?
so there's an error in your book. The agenda is actually correct that it should be staff and infrastructure, but in your book, what you were given was infrastructure and communication. So I do have the staff policy I can give everybody that just has a couple of changes to it. But that is the policy that's listed on the agenda to be reviewed tonight.
And was the staff for second reading?
Yes.
Okay, then we'll hold it because the public hasn't had a chance to look at it if we just bring it to us right now.
Okay.
Okay, so could I have a motion to table the staff committee policy 185.3 for second reading? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion there? All in favor of tabling policy 185.3 staff committee for second reading? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so that policy is tabled until our next board meeting. Now we have policy, let's see, so infrastructure is supposed to be there? Okay, all right. Policy 185.4, infrastructure committee for second reading. And typically, second reading, I'm a little bit confused, Michelle, because typically we don't have the lines and boxes.
Right, but I left them in this time because the first time you saw them, there were more changes than what you're seeing now as the final reading.
Okay.
That Kyle asked the board to not look at and just approve these. So I wanted everybody to see that these were the only ones that he had asked you to vote on as a first reading, so these are the only ones coming forward for second reading.
Okay, thank you.
Then I'll make them.
Thank you. Is there a motion for this?
I'll make a motion that we approve the revisions to policy 185.4, the infrastructure committee policy as presented.
Is there a second?
For final reading.
I'll second.
Any discussion? I have a question. Can you remind me what the change was all about?
That's a good catch. The first reading passed only section A. I had asked that anything in section C be omitted and not considered for the first reading until I had more time to work on the committee composition. So the only change that we approved for the first reading was the elimination of number 3, and so that's all that we would be approving for the second reading.
And the only reason that C is in there is because it was not on the original one. So it's not a change to it, it's just making sure it's there, because it was overlooked and it was not on there. It was the only committee
That's what I
policy that
thought.
did not have the composition listed.
Okay, so we're not changing the composition from any of the other committees. It's all the same, but now it's on here because it was inadvertently left off.
Correct.
All right, that's what I was thinking may have happened.
So it's the original composition, there's no change to it.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so the Infrastructure Committee Policy 185.4 passes with second reading. Now we have a discussion about the State Education Convention attendance. This is in January, and the exact dates, do you recall, Michelle?
23 through 25.
23 through 25, okay. People can go to one day or all days. You can stay there, you can come back every night. People do it different ways, but it is a very valuable experience, especially for new board members, but for everyone really. I'm just saying new board members will learn a lot. Everyone learns a lot at this meeting. I would encourage anyone who can go to attend. And typically we say, if you're up for re-election the next year, you shouldn't go. I think we need this board to become educated on recent issues, to learn more about the role of board member. And I think it'd be valuable because we'll bring back, whoever goes, we'll bring back and share. And we usually do that as part of the business meeting following this convention. You come back and share a few things that you attended and learned, different sessions that you attended. So is anyone interested in this card?
Actually, I've gone, I think, 5 years, and I will not be interested, but that's typically, for us to fill in the blank, that's typically, people raise their hand to see who might be interested, and then that's usually what we approve. Maybe you know that.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions about the WASB conference? I think the reason it's on here tonight is because it's opening, registration is opening, and if we're going to get the best rates on everything, early bird discounts and everything, it's better to say now if you'd like to go. Mr. Larson, you're our representative as a delegate, so you're planning to go, I hope?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, all right, so there's one. Who else would like to go? You'll be as an exhibit? Oh, that's great. Great. Okay, I would like to attend. I attended last year and just brought back so much. I don't know. I'd like to do it again. So, okay, why don't we, I guess, start with 2, and if anyone else decides that they would like to attend, they could let you know. Is this an action item? Yeah.
Michelle,
okay.
when do you need to know by? And
The actual, I think registration opens on November 1st, so sometime in October would be great. As soon as registration opens, we want to try to get people registered so that we can get the best rates on everything.
There's also an early registration period, and if you don't make it in that period, it costs you more to register afterwards.
Yeah. Mr. Larson?
I was going to say, I haven't seen anything from WASB regarding the sessions or anything yet.
No, they don't have them yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I thought that would, seeing the sessions are available might drive people who want to go if they see the sessions and would be interested, like which day they want to go, how long they want to go for.
That's what I tried looking that up because I thought the same thing, that might encourage people to attend. But so how about a motion that whoever would like to go may attend, seeing how we have, only a couple interested. Whoever would like to go may attend, but to put a October, 31st deadline on it, on notifying Michelle? Would someone like to make that motion?
It was October 31st was the deadline.
The Board of Education approves that any board member wanting to attend the Wisconsin State Education Convention in January 2019 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, let Ms. Shope know by October 31st, 2018.
I'll second.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second.
I think you need to clarify the
I was just
motion
gonna
as
say, that's why
to
I'm
that you're going
hesitating.
to, it'd be more the board approves the funding of the registration and expenses according to our board policy for anyone wishing to attend the state conference in January.
Okay, I'll second that amendment, and could we vote on that as a substitute motion? Did you get that, Michelle?
I think so.
'Cause that's why I was hesitating, because the approval word wasn't in there. Thank you. Okay, Michelle, could you just read that back? I'm sorry.
So the amendment was that, made the friendly amendment to approve the funding for registration and expenses
Mm-hmm.
for any board member attending the Wisconsin State Education Convention in January in Milwaukee.
Okay, and I seconded it, and.
Per board reimbursement levels.
On board cells.
Yeah, per policy, so yeah.
Okay.
Ms. Gard?
I thought just said for everyone, not specifically board member, and I'm just wondering, would that include administrators? Sometimes administrators go. So I thought I heard say everyone.
But we don't have to approve that.
Yep.
Yeah. I hope they do, but we don't approve that. We don't approve it, but I hope administrators do attend. Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. All right, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so the motion passes, and if you are interested in attending the WASB convention, please let Michelle know by October 31st. All right, personnel recommendations. Is there a motion to approve recommendations as presented?
I move that the Board of Education approve the employment recommendations Exhibit A and Exhibit B as presented.
Is there a second? Second. Okay. Personnel recommendations are approved. I'm sorry. The motion is to approve personnel recommendations Exhibit A and B as presented. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Personnel recommendations pass. Discussion items. Are there any suggestions for items to be discussed at future meetings? Ms. Gard?
I would really like to look at the Equality Committee and understand what their charge is and how we as a board can work with that Equality Committee. And I would be interested in looking at the documents that David said he has, just so that we have clarification, so that we can respond to the committee that's worked so diligently in a way that is fluent and unifying.
Any others? Okay, I actually had the same thing on my list. I'd like to look at all of our ad hoc committees, see which ones are still up and running, which ones are still doing work. I'm sure there are some that need to be dissolved. We had an ad hoc committee to look at recess and playgrounds 3 years ago, and I think that's not meeting anymore. So I'd like to kind of clean up our ad hoc committees and, like you said, address the ones that are still doing work and make sure that, you know, we know their charge, they know their charge, they can form goals, and we can communicate better. I'd like to know more about these PLCs, professional learning communities. I'm not a teacher, so I don't know exactly what they are. How does our district compare to others as far as, how frequently we have them, how many hours a month teachers go to those? Are teachers compensated for the extra time? These are all questions that I have, and I'd like to learn more about those, please. Anything else from anyone? Mr. Larson?
I would be interested in kind of finding out how expensive it would be and what it would take to bring back driver's ed, maybe just for the summer. I know that a lot of districts no longer provide that, but we have so much great programming with the co-ops, and I don't want the expense of driver's education to be a barrier for our families. I want to make sure we can have as many students accessing those programs as possible.
Good idea. Okay. All right.
At some point, you're still going to have to reschedule the workshop, governance workshop.
Yes, yeah. Oh, and, okay. Michelle sent out one of those, what do you call those, Michelle? Doodles for us to all complete. Did everyone complete that? No? Okay, we have a couple people who didn't, and we can't move forward until we get those completed. I have contacted Guy Levitt from WASB, and he's going to do one workshop, and Dr. Childs is going to do another. So we will need to know the availability dates as soon as possible. Yes.
Okay, so one more thing that could be going to whether it's the staff committee or the full board. I'm interested in knowing the level of background checks that anyone who comes into the contact with our students would go through, like criminal background checks. What I know DPI does a lot of that, but then also as far as like third parties, so is there any screening like through Aramark or any of our other third-party vendors? Because we've talked a lot of time about making our buildings safe and looking at making sure buildings are safe, employees are trained, but then I think this is another aspect of that school safety, that what kind of screening or their background checks that any person or any employee who has any contact with the district would go through.
That's a very good point. Michelle, why are you smiling like that? Okay. Mr. Bonds.
Yes, what would be the board's desire for recording of student performance data next week? October 2nd, the state will release the performance data for FOR and ACT. The paper always will run an article that day, that same day, but that I don't have time to get information to the board ahead of time, so I want to know that they're trying to have expectations for reporting performance data to the first.
So are you, well, when you give it to the paper, could we just get it then? Because I know they don't like to wait, but, so if we could just get an email with whatever you're sending them, I think that would be fine. Yeah. Okay. Any other items of interest for consideration at future meetings? Ms. Gard?
Just one more. I was thinking about the Tech Ed program. I kind of would like to have an update on what's happening in the Tech Ed program, and if there is a working relationship with Career Tech. I'm not sure where we stand on that.
Okay. All right. Our committee meetings coming up. Our Communication Committee, Thursday, September 27th, 2 o'clock p.m. And Fiscal Committee, Wednesday, October 10th, 5 o'clock p.m. Infrastructure Committee, Thursday, October 4th, 5 o'clock p.m. Staff Committee, Tuesday, October 9th, 5 o'clock p.m. Student Committee, Tuesday, October 9th, 4 o'clock p.m. And future committees will all meet at least after 4 p.m. So if anyone, staff, or anyone who works is interested in joining the Communication Committee, I know that they need more members, and I think most other committees have at least one opening. So please consider joining and helping out with these committees and the decision-making process for our school district. There's nothing else? I think we're ready to adjourn.
Our exciting workshops tomorrow.
Yes. Oh, thank you. I didn't forget the workshop, but I forgot to mention it. Yeah, tomorrow at 5 o'clock, we have a Robert's Rules of Order workshop, followed by a workshop given by, let's see, they've just changed their name. They were Wisconsin Taxpayer Alliance. They've changed their name. I'm sorry, I don't recall the new name, but they will have a representative here to give us a workshop on school funding tomorrow night too. He said it should be about a half hour and then time for questions afterwards. So that's going to be kind of quick. I don't think it'll be more than an hour. We may have time for a break in between the two meetings. 6 o'clock, yeah. Anything else? When he said that, he said, should I make it shorter? And I said, I don't think so. The last person that presented from the same organization, I think, was here for about an hour and a half. So hopefully we'll learn this tomorrow so that we can understand better about how our budget decisions affect taxpayers and so forth. All right, is there any other business? Michelle, did we miss anything tonight that we need to cover? Okay. All right.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Okay. Meeting, all in favor of adjourning the meeting? Aye. Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.